Chapter 985. The mention of lifespan made Han Fei and the others think a lot. This was just the knowledge that the old man mentioned casually, but they didn't understand it at all. After all, no one had mentioned this to them before. Han Fei thought for a while and asked, "Senior, I have a question. Is there any conflict between the Chu sect and the Thug Academy?" Ku Shui shook his head. "I really don't know. After all, only the strong know about the matters between the strong." Han Fei frowned. "What kind of family is the Chu sect? What do they usually do?" Ku Shui smiled and said, "It's simple. The Chu sect is a latecomer with a history of only a few thousand years. They have a special fondness for the 1,000-star proving ground and think that there is a big secret in it." Han Fei's heart did a flip. The 1,000-star proving ground? Could it be that the conflict between the Chu sect and the Thug Academy came from the 1,000-star proving ground? Thinking of the sea-swallowing seashell that old Bai gave him before he left, Han Fei decided to go to the 1,000-star proving ground first. "Senior, please go on." Ku Shui thought for a while and said with a smile, "Except for the big families, the peripheral islands are around the central island. A declining family could be scattered on any floating island if they were not picky about where they live. Except for the big families, other people's residences are not divided according to their strength. The strong may live with the weak, which is normal. And there are even more small markets, thousands of them. There is a large-scale prosperous place on every floating island. The most important ones are the 7 major sections." Han Fei and the others were like children listening to a story around a bonfire. Han Fei had already taken out melon fruit and was listening to the story with Lu Renquang. Seeing this scene, Luo Xiaobai rolled her eyes. What kind of bad habit is this? Seeing Han Fei and the others like this, Ku Shui couldn't help but be speechless. "Do you really think I'm telling a story?" However, Ku Shui just smiled. "Yes, they are still children." Ku Shui said, "The 7 major sects are located on the 7 outermost floating islands. It can be said that every floating island where the 7 major sects are located has slowly developed into their own territory. Although there are many people living on them, they are more or less related to the various sections. After all, the people of the sect also needed resources. Where did these resources come from? Naturally, they were obtained through various transactions. What about the Thug Academy?" Ku Shui paused for a moment and his face stiffened slightly. This was also why he paid special attention to Miss after she went to the Thug Academy. Ku Shui said, "The Thug Academy has been vacant for almost 38 years. Ever since that battle, the Thug Academy had been empty. The place was overgrown with weeds. The plantation seemed to have been occupied by a few large families. However, he should be able to get it back. The other territories outside the ruins of the Thug Academy were more or less occupied. However, the old site had not changed. Although there might be people living there, it was still a barren land. The main reason was that the Thug Academy was so powerful back then that no one dared to occupy it." Han Fei and the others had a weird look on their faces. "Do you mean that all that's left of the Thug Academy is the old site? Is there nothing else?" Ku Shui nodded slightly, touched his beard, and said, "But since the young masters have gone back, they should be able to develop that place again." For some reason, Han Fei felt that something was wrong when he heard this. Because the 1,000-star city was too big, it was impossible for old man Ku Shui to explain everything clearly. Just think about the Scattered Stars Island. How big was that? Not to mention the Scattered Stars Island, even the Blue Sea town wasn't small and was ridiculously prosperous. Who knew how these floating islands could fly in the sky? The ancient powerhouses really couldn't be treated as ordinary people. Thinking about it this way, Chun Huangdian's 800-kilometer sea demon mine was nothing. He had already moved thousands of kilometers of rivers and mountains. So, Senior Ku Shui, the Thug Academy is also on these 36 floating islands, right? Not those negligible small islands, right? Ku Shui nodded. Of course not. The Thug Academy used to be comparable to the Heavenly Sword sect and the Jade Fairy Palace. Although there are few disciples in the academy, each of them is talented. Any one of them is not a simple person, so naturally, it won't be on an ordinary island. Han Fei and the others immediately heaved a sigh of relief. That's good. Otherwise, they wouldn't know how to fight for territory. From the north to the east, Han Fei and the others passed by several floating islands. They also encountered a lot of fishing boats. In the sky there were also birds flying. However, birds usually didn't fly too high. Most of them were relatively ordinary birds. Occasionally, a few people's senses would sweep over, but it was only because Ku Shui was here. Otherwise, no one would look at it if it was just the few of them. In fact, this time they really crossed over mountains and rivers, rushing towards the rising sun, flying all the way. Half an hour later, they arrived at a floating island with high mountains, flowing water, and waterfalls. Flying past the crowd and the bazaar, passing by woodlands and mountains, they finally saw an abandoned school building in the easternmost side. No matter what the Thug Academy used to look like, half of it was now covered by woodland and the other half was exposed. It was overgrown with weeds, and some of the houses had collapsed. In some cases, only the pillars were left. The stone slabs on the ground and the paths were no longer what they used to be. There were weeds in the gap. As soon as they saw this academy, Han Fei and the others nodded. This was the style of the Thug Academy. Its back was against the mountain, and in front of it was a plantation. The difference was that there were rivers connecting the inside and outside of the Thug Academy. At this moment, there were still people sitting on broken stones, fishing. Luo Xiaobai frowned and said, "Why is there only so little left? It's not even within 100 kilometers. The left and right sides have been occupied." Lu Renquang pointed to the front and said, "Look, the plantation is no longer what it used to be. Many houses have been built on it. The remaining one isn't even half the size of the one in the Blue Sea town, right?" Zhang Xuanyu said, "It's not that the plantation has been occupied, but that this place is not the gate of the academy at all. The gate is over there." Everyone looked in the direction Zhang Xuanyu pointed, only to see that dozens of kilometers away, there were two tall stone pillars. It was probably because the pillars were not easy to move, so no one cared about them. Li Luoluo said, "It's not big. Not including the forest, it's only 100 kilometers, right? Including the forest, it's only about 300 kilometers. Han Fei said seriously, "Including the plantation, it's at least 500 kilometers. Ku Shui said with a smile, "To be precise, it should be 800 kilometers. Although there weren't many people in the Thug Academy before, you all know that the Thug Academy likes this natural feeling. So, including the plantation, it's more than 800 kilometers. They were silent. Lu Renquang said leisurely, "There are still 50 kilometers left." The corner of Zhang Xuanyu's mouth twitched. "The plantation has been occupied. Almost half of the gate has been occupied." They all looked at Han Fei, including Luo Xiaobai. In battles and adventures, Luo Xiaobai had always been calm and resourceful. However, when it came to seizing territory, she didn't know how to do it at all. Should we fight them? Or should we reason with them? Han Fei's face changed slightly. After a long silence he said, "Let's go to the old site first. There can be no construction without destruction. Push down all the things that should fall. Remove all the things that should be removed and rebuild." Zhang Xuanyu said in surprise, "Are we just going to ignore those people?" Han Fei grinned. "Don't panic. Let's clean up the remaining places first. When the time comes, we'll push down wherever we can. If the peak-level law enforcers don't come, we'll push them all the way." Lu Renquang asked, "What if a peak-level law enforcer comes?" Han Fei sneered. "Kill him." Zhang Xuanyu asked, "Who?" Han Fei looked at Ku Shui. "Haha, Senior Ku Shui, kill him." Ku Shui was speechless. But in fact, he didn't care. Han Fei didn't treat him as an outsider. Besides, because Miss was a student of the Thug Academy, Ku Shui would indeed help. However, he wouldn't take action immediately. He would only show up when Han Fei and the others couldn't solve the problem. Luo Xiaobai thought it was fine. This was their academy, so it was only right for them to help. Li Luoluo said, "What if the explorers come?" Han Fei smiled and said, "No. If the explorers dare to cause trouble, it'll be too embarrassing." Han Fei suddenly looked at Li Luoluo. "Li Luoluo, do you want to join our school? Then you are below us in seniority." Li Luoluo immediately said, "Why? Can't I be a part-time teacher? I'm a law enforcer. I'm the only law enforcer among you." Zhang Xuanyu smiled and said, "As long as you don't become Li Kuang, everything is fine. Luoluo, I agree to let you be a teacher." Luo Xiaobai's mind was elsewhere. The strength of the Thug Academy was too weak now. They didn't have enough teachers. What if many heavenly talents came? Lu Renkuang didn't care. Anyway, as long as there was food to eat, it would be fine. Han Fei nodded. "Okay, then you will be the first external teacher of our Thug Academy. Now, Teacher Li, please clean up with us." Li Luoluo. When Han Fei and the others landed on the ground, they all noticed that something was wrong. The traces of the battle on the ground were too obvious. Some places were full of potholes, some slabs were broken, and some places were filled with sword chi and terrifying knife lights, which hadn't dissipated after 38 years. It could be seen that the battle that took place in the Thug Academy was probably more terrifying than they had imagined. Han Fei summoned the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. Han Fei instructed, "Xiaobai, all the plant cleaning work is yours. Lu Renkuang will cut down trees, Zhang Xuanyu will quarry stones, Li Luoluo will control the insects to dig the ground. Nine-tailed mantis shrimp, you will demolish the house, demolish it all." Li Luoluo asked, "What are you doing?" Han Fei smiled and said, "I'm going to kick them out." Chapter 986. Although it was a bit wasteful to ask Luo Xiaobai and the others to clean up, it was really fast. And when Luo Xiaobai and the others started to clean up, the people who were fishing in the Thug Academy got up one after another and looked at this group of uninvited guests in surprise, dumbfounded. When these people saw Han Fei walking towards them, they couldn't help but yell, "Hey, boy, what are you doing? Are you going to demolish the house?" Boom. As soon as this person said so, he saw a dilapidated building in the distance was smashed by the nine-tailed mantis shrimp's tail. Han Fei grinned and said, "My name is Han Fei from the Thug Academy. Well, you can think of me as the acting president of the Thug Academy in the 1,000-Star City. From today on, I have the final say in this place." Those people's faces changed slightly, and someone said in surprise, "The Thug Academy is back?" Someone narrowed his eyes and said disdainfully, "Boy, who do you think you are? The Thug Academy has long ceased to exist. Just because you say you are from the Thug Academy, you are?" Han Fei looked at them up and down. "Well, among the 5 of you, only one is an intermediate hidden fisher, but you are yelling at me. I'll give you 2 minutes to leave. Otherwise, I don't mind forcing you to leave in person." Indeed, these people were not strong. Of course, Han Fei was surprised that there was a hidden fisher among the people he met in the 1,000-Star City. This showed that there were many hidden fishers in the 1,000-Star City. At this moment, the hidden fisher glanced at Han Fei and Luo Xiaobai and the others who were controlling the spiritual plants in the distance and couldn't help but frown. He couldn't see through Han Fei's strength, but Han Fei should be stronger than them. The man immediately sneered. "Okay. Bullying people in the 1,000-Star City. Boy, you are crazy. Since I can't talk to you, someone else will talk to you. Let's go." In fact, there were more people fishing in the entire Thug Academy. On both sides, in some places, some people were cultivating and some were strengthening their bodies. In the forest, there were also people. Han Fei was just putting on a show. If he wanted to drive someone away, he had to look like he wanted to. He wanted to find these people one by one. Looking at the 5 people leaving angrily, Ku Shui appeared beside Han Fei. Young Master Han Fei, although this place is deserted, it's close to the mountains and rivers, and it's full of spiritual energy. Every morning, many people come here to cultivate. Han Fei looked up at the sky. So, we're late? Most of them have already finished cultivating and gone back, right? Ku Shui nodded. Han Fei grinned. It's okay. You're not allowed to come in tomorrow. After a while, he came to a place overgrown with weeds on the left side of the college. A young man was cultivating there, and spiritual energy was gathering around him. The boy probably knew that Han Fei was coming, but he didn't stop cultivating. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. He stomped his foot and a spirit-gathering array appeared. The spiritual energy that should have been poured into the young man's body was easily deprived by Han Fei. The boy opened his eyes, frowned, and looked at Han Fei. A spirit-gatherer? What are you doing? Why are you disturbing my cultivation? Han Fei smiled and said, Did I not make myself clear enough just now, or did you not take it seriously at all? I said, the Thug Academy is back. Everyone, please leave. The boy looked calm. Just because you say you're from the Thug Academy, you're right? Clatter. As soon as the boy finished speaking, he felt his vision blur, and then his whole body had been lifted 100 meters into the air. Han Fei grinned. Do you think I'm joking with you? Luo Xiaobai and the others raised their heads, knowing that Han Fei couldn't negotiate with them. Han Fei shouted, Today, the Thug Academy is back. Within 100 kilometers, leave within half an hour. Otherwise, don't blame me for kicking you out. The boy in Han Fei's hand said angrily, Let go of me. Do you know which family I am from? Han Fei flipped his hand, twisted his body, and threw the boy dozens of kilometers away from the sky. Han Fei shouted in the sky, I don't care which family you are from. It's useless even if the Chao family and the Chu sect come. Today, whoever I want to leave has to leave. But as soon as Han Fei finished speaking, he saw that a few kilometers away, someone also rose into the air and flew up. How arrogant! You're just a peak-level hidden fisher. How dare you kick me out here? Boom! A golden fist mark blasted out, and the person who spoke changed his face drastically and used a big turtle to protect himself. At the same time, a turtle shield flew out of the armor box. BM, Kacha! The turtle shield shattered, and the man vomited blood and was sent flying by Han Fei's punch. Han Fei grinned and said, Talk to me when you're qualified to take a punch from me. Now, if you don't get out of here within 10 minutes, don't blame me for beating you. Bam! A person in the forest was blasted flying, and Zhang Xuanyu cursed, I told you to get out of here, so get out of here. Cut the crap. After a while. From 100 kilometers away, dozens of people left angrily one after another. Before leaving, they all left a lot of harsh word. Okay, I didn't expect that now everyone dares to come to the Pure Sun Island and behave atrociously. Don't leave if you dare. Okay, I'd like to see how this show ends. Wait here for half an hour if you dare. You've never been kicked out of here in your life. You're good. Although they were all leaving behind words when they left, not a single one of them dared to scold anyone. The power of Han Fei's punch just now was too horrifying. A peak-level hidden fisher was sent flying by Han Fei without even taking a punch. Seeing Han Fei's decisiveness, if they really fought with Han Fei now, they would probably be beaten for nothing. Of course, they wouldn't do such a thing. However, they all held their anger in their hearts and prepared to come back later to see how Han Fei would deal with this. Li Luoluo said, Wow! Han Fei, you seem to have offended a lot of people all of a sudden. Han Fei said casually, At present, in the entire Scattered Stars Island, how many forces have we not offended yet? Since we've offended a few big families, we don't mind offending some ordinary people. We can solve the problem once and for all. Rumble. Rumble. The dilapidated buildings were knocked down by the 9-tailed mantis shrimp. On the ground, weeds were being pulled up. On the ground, countless crisscrossed mounds appeared. An hour later, weeds piled up, gravel piled up, and an area of about 30 kilometers was cleared, empty. Zhang Xuanyu and Lu Renquang, one carried rows of big trees stacked together, and the other carried boulders one after another, forming several rows. Han Fei was not idle either. Walking on the land that had been cleared, the gravity pressed down on him, and wherever he passed, the land was flattened. The old man Ku Shui watched with great interest. He had to admit that the students of the Thug Academy were really good at hands-on work. Besides, was that the power of the law that Han Fei was using? He felt the fluctuation of the law. Could a hidden fisher master the law of gravity? Suddenly, Han Fei sensed that a large group of people were rushing here from hundreds of kilometers away. There were thousands of them. Yes, thousands. Han Fei was a little surprised. These people were a bit fast. Han Fei shouted, "Stop what you're doing and get ready to welcome the guests. Which son of a bitch beat my son? Come out. How dare a few hidden fishers behave atrociously on the Pure Sun Island? Did they get hit in the head by an ironhead fish? If they don't pay the price today, those guys won't be able to walk out of the Pure Sun Island. The Thug Academy hasn't had a successor for nearly 40 years. I'd like to see who is pretending to be from the Thug Academy." After a while, the 5 of them lined up in a row and saw thousands of people charging at them. They were led by as many as 8 law enforcers and a large number of peak-level hidden fishers. As for the others, there were old people, children, women, and strong middle-aged men. Anyway, they all looked unfriendly. For them, the place where the Thug Academy was located had long become their daily cultivation place. Even though this place had been deserted, the Thug Academy was once very prosperous, so the location chosen was not bad. The density of spiritual energy here was very good on the Pure Sun Island. In the past, when the Thug Academy was still here, it was protected by a large array and could be said to be a holy land for cultivation, with rich spiritual energy. In the entire Thousand-Star City, it was ranked among the best. Now that the Thug Academy had been destroyed and the large array had been obliterated, it was much better than other places. Everyone was used to it and felt that this place was ownerless and should belong to everyone. However, someone claimed to be from the Thug Academy and wanted to take this place back. Who would listen to him? When he saw Han Fei and the others, the person who had been thrown out by Han Fei just now immediately pointed at Han Fei and shouted, "Dad, is that him?" And the person who had been blown away just now was still a little pale at this moment. He said to a middle-aged man beside him, "Uncle, it's this person. He's arrogant and domineering. Don't worry, son. He must give us an explanation today." With that, the middle-aged man pointed straight at Han Fei. Unless you kneel down and apologize today, you won't be able to walk out of the Pure Sun Island today." With that, the middle-aged man pointed straight at Han Fei. Another person sneered. "It's not as simple as just apologizing. You must pay enough compensation for openly hurting people." An old man shouted, "Boy, who allowed you to touch this place?" A woman accused, "Who was I? A bunch of brats claiming to be from the Thug Academy? I'm afraid he's lost his mind from thinking about the territory." A young man stared at Li Luoluo and said disdainfully, "You don't even look like a woman. You don't look like a good person." Li Luoluo shouted, "I dare you to say that again. I'll beat you into a big yellow fish." Chapter 987. Han Fei glanced at Li Luoluo. Quarreling won't solve the problem. No matter how loud you are, you can't win over 1,000 people. You have to fight them. Li Luoluo rolled her eyes and thought to herself, "How can I fight them?" Unless old man Ku Shui took action, there were dozens of peak-level hidden fishers among the 8 law enforcers here. Adding up the others, this group of people was definitely not weak. Han Fei was also a little surprised. The Thousand-Star City was much stronger than he had imagined. If the Scattered Stars Island and the 10,000 Demon Valley were the front lines, then the Thousand Star City might be equivalent to the so-called Royal City in the Sea Demon's mouth, with many strong masters. If all the strong masters here were really dragged to the Scattered Stars Island to fight, if the other party only had the 10,000 Demon Valley, they would have been wiped out long ago. However, Han Fei didn't panic at all. He took a step forward and pointed his knife at them. Since you're all here, that's great. From today on, no one is allowed to enter within 800 kilometers of the Thug Academy. The occupied territory of the Thug Academy must be returned within 3 days. If you don't return it, I'll force you to leave. Is this person crazy? Does he know what he's talking about? Is there something wrong with his brain? Return? Return what? Who do you think you are? Amidst the ridicule, Han Fei walked forward with his knife. Li Luoluo, you take one law enforcer. Li Luoluo looked at Han Fei speechlessly. You'll take all the rest? Han Fei grinned. Let me try. Luo Xiaobai said, I'll take one. Zhang Xuanyu licked the corner of his mouth and said, Me too. Lu Renquang was speechless. Then Han Fei said, The people below are all yours. Lu Renquang rolled his eyes. You guys each deal with one, but I have to deal with 1,000? Are you kidding me? Suddenly, Luo Xiaobai said, Forget it, I'll switch with Lu Renquang. If he really fights, I'm afraid there will be a river of blood. Lu Renquang was an armorist, and now that he had learned the true martial devil knife from Old Han, it was impossible for him not to hurt people. As for Luo Xiaobai, she was a manipulator. Although she could also kill people, she was relatively gentle in group battles. The 5 of them walked forward in a straight line. Glib tongue? Who knew how long it would take? Han Fei said as he walked. You asked us how we can prove that we're from the Thug Academy? Today, I, along with 5 people from the Thug Academy, challenge all of you. The 1,000 people on the other side were dumbfounded. Countless people were speechless. They had seen crazy people before, but they had never seen someone this crazy. You want to challenge over 1,000 of us with just 5 people? On the opposite side, the middle-aged leader shouted, Brat, do you really think killing is forbidden in the 1,000-star city? You're a hidden fisher. If you die here, what do you think anyone will say? Han Fei and the others walked faster and faster, and their shadows flickered. First, the bloodthirsty shark appeared behind Zhang Xuanyu. Then, he activated the Trinity body. 3 identical Zhang Zuanyas appeared in front of everyone, each with a divine weapon in their hands. Then, an orange-red light burst out of Lu Renquang's body as he activated the violent war body. Behind him, a dark blue, formless shadow entered his body. This was the Deep Blue Roar. Even Han Fei and the others rarely saw Lu Renquang use Deep Blue Roar. That was a legendary contractual spiritual beast. Li Luoluo waved her hand, and a large number of colorful insects appeared, her momentum rising sharply. Whoop! Han Fei's phantom glass wings spread out, and everyone was stunned by his translucent wings. And Luo Xiaobai was even more amazing. With every step she took, the vegetation around her grew. The vines were weaving, man-eating flowers appeared, and all kinds of thorns began to grow densely. Ku Shui watched from a distance and sighed. No wonder his family was so optimistic about this batch of students from the Thug Academy. They were all monsters. Needless to say, Han Fei had obtained the Wind God Pearl and was a refiner with amazing strength. Even the little girl who joined halfway was extraordinary. And the thousands of people on the opposite side were also a little dumbfounded at this moment. The strength of the 5 teenagers on the opposite side was rapidly increasing. Besides, none of them looked simple. Especially the one with the glass wings in the middle. Why weren't they white? A law enforcer's face turned ugly. He took a deep breath and said word by word, Wind, God, Pearl. The faces of the law enforcers all became solemn. The person who could obtain the Wind God Pearl was definitely not a nameless person. If they were the children of the big families in the Thousand-Star City, they would have long spread. This meant that these teenagers might have just come from the scattered Stars Island. The old man in the lead said, "Young people, your talents are indeed outstanding. We can admit that you are from the Thug Academy. However, we have already settled in the outside world. Why don't you keep this undeveloped place and rebuild the school?" The old man knew how the Thug Academy had once fallen. Under normal circumstances, the Thug Academy would never be able to return to this place in this life. But now Han Fei and the others had come, and there were no big families in the Thousand-Star City stopping them, which explained some things. This meant that, to a certain extent, some big families had acquiesced. If it was just Han Fei and the others, they didn't have the ability or the strength to make the big families acquiesce in their return. Therefore, behind Han Fei and the others, there must be a strong master who could speak in the Thousand-Star City. Such a person was definitely not someone ordinary people could compare to. At least, he was not someone that they, as independent cultivators, could afford to offend. Han Fei said indifferently, "If I say I'll return it, then I'll return it all. There's no room for bargaining." The old man immediately said angrily, "Boy, don't push your luck. Then let's fight." At this moment, Han Fei was extremely domineering. There were some things that could be solved with fists, so there was no need to reason with them. After all, when 5 mouths were quarreling, it was extremely difficult to win against 1,000 mouths in an argument. This was not a quarrel with a group of Confucians. They were quarreling with the Confucians and arguing with them. But now this was a quarrel, more like a quarrel. How could they quarrel? Swish! Han Fei disappeared, and when he reappeared, he was already hundreds of meters away in the sky. At this moment, he shouted, "Law enforcers, come up! Otherwise, don't blame me for not reminding you." Swish! 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 Everyone flew into the sky. In an instant, there was only Luo Xiaobai left on the field. Her pupils were pure white, and at this moment, she looked coldly at the thousands of people in front of her. The young man who had been thrown away and blasted back by Han Fei was still in shock. They were all hidden fishers, but why were these people so arrogant and domineering? In the air, Lu Renquang, Zhang Xuanyu, and Li Luoluo each restrained one person and left. The remaining 5 people faced Han Fei. Someone said, "Boy, no matter how talented you are just a hidden fisher. How can you be a match for us 5 law enforcers? If there were advanced law enforcers among you, I certainly wouldn't challenge you. Unfortunately, you don't." As he spoke, he activated the devil change and the agility of wind. Han Fei was like a flickering phantom in the air. With a dragon roar, the golden fist mark blasted directly at the 5 people. Boom, boom, boom! The sky was exploding and the void was trembling. In just 10 minutes, all 5 law enforcers were blasted back by Han Fei. Some were even smashed into the mountain, their hands bleeding. At that moment, someone on the ground was horrified. How is it possible? He is only a hidden fisher. Even the 5 law enforcers were shocked. Not good, this boy is a heavenly talent on the path of body refinement. We must use the power of laws. For these law enforcers, of course, they didn't want to use law enforcers at first. But as soon as Han Fei attacked, his strength and speed suppressed them in all aspects. Didn't he need to use law enforcers? They could only be beaten up. Fire tide. The sky was crimson, and fire covered the sky, and Han Fei was instantly shrouded in flames. However, in the perception of the law enforcers, Han Fei was not affected at all, and the golden fist mark still burst out. Someone shouted, "Demonic sound of fear." A strange sound rang in the sky, and Han Fei stuffed a mouthful of mint leaves into his mouth, used the draw technique, and slashed at the man without even looking at him. Violent electric current. Z-la-la. Han Fei resisted the terrifying electric current and even twisted his head twice, making a cracking sound. He pointed with one hand, and the infinity water turned into thousands of knives, sweeping over crazily. Poison cloud. Triple rampage. Unfortunately, although the 5 law enforcers each had their own advantages, what stunned them was that Han Fei didn't even retreat. They didn't know that Han Fei had been drinking poison for 2 years. At this moment, the Heaven Spirit detoxifying insect was a level 47 detoxifying insect. It had tasted all kinds of poisons. Han Fei had tasted 80% of the poisons that could be bought on the market. On the other hand, the middle-aged law enforcer, who was in the 3rd level of Berserk, turned out to be even stronger than Han Fei. Bam! Han Fei punched 3 times in a row and barely broke the man's fist. However, it didn't matter. Han Fei's figure flickered in the air, and his speed was extremely fast. In an instant, he punched the man more than 20 times. In the sky, the battle was fierce. Lu Renkuang was like a demon, controlling more than 1,000 semi-divine weapons and dozens of divine weapons to wreak havoc. In his hand, he was holding a pitch-black broadsword, and behind him stood a black phantom more than 50 meters in size. True martial sharpening broadsword could tear the sky and crack the earth, and the opponent happened to master gravity. But when it fell on the deep blue roar, it was all sucked away. So, after fighting for more than 10 minutes, Lu Renkuang hacked the man until he was covered in blood. Zhang Xuanyu's physique wasn't that strong, but his long-distance momentary time was so accurate that even a law enforcer couldn't block it. Li Luoluo controlled countless flying insects. She was a law enforcer, so she didn't lose at all. On the ground, flowers bloomed everywhere, and the huge blue cannibal flower bloomed with thousands of flowers. The Grand Spirit summoning technique summoned more than 50 kinds of spiritual plants, all kinds of poisons, smoke, and spirit-devouring spiritual plants into the crowd. One person controlled the field, and the surroundings became a dangerous place. Ku Shui sighed in the distance. What a monster! Chapter 988. It wasn't impossible for a hidden fisher to defeat a law enforcer. As a matter of fact, there were always geniuses in the 7 great academies and the renowned clans who were capable of doing so. After all, the law enforcers only controlled a law, not a great Tao. If this law happened to be unable to suppress the other party, or the other party happened to be able to suppress this law, then the gap between a law enforcer and a hidden fisher would only be the upper limit of spiritual energy, physical strength, and soul power. However, prodigies and ordinary people could be considered 2 different creatures. One could not use the strength of an ordinary person to measure a prodigy. If that was the case, the consequences would be very tragic. However, no one would have thought that Han Fei's strength had been so exaggerated that he could fight against 5 people alone. 4 types of laws were practically useless against him. The only law that was effective against him was actually the most ordinary law of strength. Who wouldn't panic if they were in his shoes? At this moment, under the continuous bombardment, because the 5 law enforcers couldn't suppress Han Fei with their nomological laws, and their overall strength was crushed by Han Fei, they could be said to have exploded in the sky. Golden Fist Prince bombarded the sky. None of the 5 law enforcers could withstand the overbearing power of the invincible Fist Prince. Apart from the strength-type enforcer, the other 4's skin was cracking and their bones were breaking. Blood was gushing out of their mouth. They could only barely keep themselves in the air, and prevent themselves from falling and injuring the people on the ground. Below, those young men and women who were originally just there to make up the numbers were all stunned when they saw this scene. On the ground, Luo Xiaobai was controlling more than 50 kinds of weird spiritual plants within a kilometer and had already killed more than 20 of them. Because no one knew what these spirit plants were, they had no way of dealing with them. What a joke! How could these people recognize the spiritual herbs from the underground city? Every hit was accurate and they all fell to the ground. Up above, Lu Renkuang's opponent couldn't hurt him at all. Even his strongest attack couldn't break the dark blue shadow shell. Besides, the demonic knife in Lu Renkuang's hand was cold and full of killing intent. Even if he was a law enforcement officer, he wouldn't be able to escape unscathed. If it weren't for the fact that Lu Renkuang wasn't fast enough, he would have been defeated. Zhang Xuanyu's opponent had been defeated. Although Zhang Xuanyu didn't seem to have much combat power, that was because he was in a group battle or in a complicated battle situation. In a one-on-one battle, this guy's momentary time was extremely terrifying. Even Han Fei couldn't avoid his momentary time. Moreover, he had created the third heaven of the Furious Sea. When the void was broken, the strength of the 3-layered waves was far stronger than the 9-layered waves of Furious Sea. Moreover, Zhang Xuanyu was holding a superior grade divine weapon. His opponent, the law enforcer, was lying on the ground with 5 or 6 holes in his body. As for Li Luoluo, her figure was flickering and colorful flying insects were flying all over the sky, creating all kinds of illusions. As a heavenly talent of the Empyrean waterfall, how could he have a problem dealing with an ordinary law enforcer? At this moment, his opponent had already fallen into an illusion and was tearing his skin apart. As for Han Fei, needless to say, his figure flickered wildly in the sky, completely treating the 5 law enforcers as sandbags. It could be said that his punches landed on flesh and blood sprayed everywhere. Below, someone was suspicious. Is he from the Yi family? Someone shook his head. No, maybe. He's really from the Thug Academy. A woman was horrified. How can he be so strong? Is the Thug Academy so strong? An old man's expression changed. The Thug Academy was indeed astoundingly strong. However, to challenge 5 people at a higher level is unheard of. Stop. Suddenly, a figure flashed across the sky and reached out to grab Han Fei. In the next moment, old man Ku Shui blocked him in midair. The young masters said that they will return the land of the Thug Academy. If you want to stop, agree to this first. The newcomer's face turned ugly. A peak-level law enforcer? Ku Shui smiled and said, I'm Ku Shui. You should be from the Su family, right? Nice to meet you, Mr. Su. The man's expression changed drastically. A divine manipulator family, the Luo family of Moon-Gazing Island. Is it Master Ku Shui? The man immediately shouted, Everyone, back off. Return all the land of the Thug Academy. Han Fei's wings swept out in an arc, and he stood next to Ku Shui, smiling faintly. That's how it should be. Don't worry, the Thug Academy has its own rules. This time, when we return to the mountain, we will re-establish an academy. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. Since there are rules here, that's fine. Han Fei smiled faintly. You can stop now. Zhang Xuanyu had already finished fighting and was watching the show with a rod in his arms. To be honest, Li Luoluo's fancy fighting style was quite beautiful. Roar. The deep blue roar disappeared, and Lu Renkuang landed on the ground and stood next to Luo Xiaobai. Luo Xiaobai stretched out her hand, and the spiritual plants in all directions quickly disappeared. After a while, only the ruins of the battlefield were left. Li Luoluo snorted. If I could kill people, I would have killed him long ago. In the sky, Ku Shui smiled and said, You guys talk. Han Fei was a law enforcer, and the person opposite him should be stronger. If he was not a peak-level law enforcer, he was at least an advanced law enforcer. He couldn't win against such an opponent yet. After all, the fundamental difference in strength was there. An advanced law enforcer, even if he didn't use any means, would have more than 10 waves of strength. It was similar to when he encountered the green wandering flood dragon. The green wandering flood dragon's physical strength was 20 waves. With just a little bit of strength, a law enforcer of the same realm wouldn't be a match for it at all. Therefore, if the person in front of him really used a secret technique, his strength would be at least twice as strong as his, giving him an absolute advantage. Besides, the other party might be a peak-level law enforcer. Han Fei speculated that the pure strength of a peak-level law enforcer would be more than twice as strong after he used the devil change. Of course, Han Fei wasn't afraid at all. He said bluntly, "The Thug Academy returns today. We're not here, so outsiders can use this territory. We're back. We'll take back all the territory. No one else is allowed to set foot here in the future." The middle-aged man took a deep look at Han Fei. He was shocked by the battle just now. It was impossible for ordinary heavenly talents to fight 5 at once. In the entire Thousand-Star City, there were no more than 10 people who could do this in hundreds of years. And Han Fei was one of them. Therefore, Han Fei was qualified to ask for territory. The middle-aged man glanced at Han Fei and the others and said, "Is the Thug Academy returning?" Han Fei nodded. "Yes." The middle-aged man frowned. "Just the 5 of you? 1 law enforcer and 4 peak-level hidden fishers?" Han Fei smiled and said, "So what if we're peak-level hidden fishers? Do you think we dare to return to the Thousand-Star City without some trump cards?" The middle-aged man was silent for a long time before suddenly saying leisurely, "There are no explorers, right?" Han Fei tilted his head and waited for the middle-aged man to continue. The middle-aged man sighed and said, "Although the Pure Sun Island has declined, there are no explorers. Are you sure the big families won't come to make trouble?" Han Fei said without hesitation, "The 7 major sects and the big families already know that we've returned. Even if they come to make trouble, it won't be explorers." The middle-aged man glanced at Han Fei in surprise and said after a moment of silence, "What about the declining families or small families?" Han Fei frowned. "What do you mean? How would I know how many families there are in the Thousand-Star City? However, there should be a lot of families in the Thousand-Star City, right? Those people shouldn't know the situation of the Thug Academy. Or, will the big families send those people to make trouble?" Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. They all came to the Thousand-Star City for a purpose. They had to go to the 3 places on the God's Monument to find a way to enter the Divine Palace, and they had to go to the Thousand-Star Proving Ground to fight for territory. Once they left and the small families came to destroy the Thug Academy, what should they do? However, although he thought of this, Han Fei remained calm on the surface. He looked at Ku Shui and said, "Senior, if those small families take the initiative to attack, can we fight them?" Ku Shui was slightly stunned. This style of doing things is really tough. Ku Shui smiled and said, "As long as it doesn't affect the lives of ordinary people, it's possible. However, there are also law enforcers in the Thousand-Star City. There's a high chance that they will stand on the side of those small families." Han Fei looked at the middle-aged man and said, "How to deal with it is the Thug Academy's own business, right? Why, does the Su family have any ideas?" The middle-aged man smiled. "Since the Thug Academy wants to establish itself in the Thousand-Star City again, you may not lack law enforcers, but you still lack explorers. However, the Su family has explorers." Han Fei narrowed his eyes slightly. "To what extent? What are the conditions?" Han Fei and the others weren't here to offend anyone. He didn't know what the Su family's goal was, but it didn't stop him from listening. The middle-aged man immediately grinned. "Since the Thug Academy is going to be rebuilt, we naturally have to recruit students. The Su family's Lin is also extraordinary. 5 names. Can you make the decision?" Since Old Bai had given him the authority, Han Fei was now the acting president, so he naturally could make the decision. However, Han Fei shook his head. "There are too many. 1, and we have to choose ourselves. This couldn't be allowed to happen. Otherwise, what would the Thug Academy look like if all the nobodies were allowed in? The tradition of the Thug Academy was to only accept geniuses." The middle-aged man didn't seem to expect Han Fei to agree to accept 5 people. He immediately said, "I won't beat around the bush. 3 people. My family has 2 explorers. If necessary, they will take action." Han Fei smiled and said, 2 explorers? Then let's accept 2. Otherwise, let's not talk about this matter. Since we can deal with the big families, do you really think those small families can overturn the sky? Interject, some people think that I said that the Thug Academy is 800 kilometers away and their mathematics is very poor. Come, let me do some calculations for him. Chapter 989. The middle-aged man was silent for a moment. He realized that there was indeed something wrong with their return this time. Logically speaking, as long as one of the big shots of the Thug Academy returned, they would be able to control the situation. But in the end, he sent 5 little ones back? This meant that there was a reason why those experts could not return. Although the experts of the Thug Academy couldn't return, the fact that they could return meant that they had recovered to a certain extent and had the strength to challenge the major families of the Thousand-Star City. Under such circumstances, the old site of the Thug Academy had to be returned. After all, the land belonged to them. He also believed that these big shots would be able to settle many of the small clans here with just a little bit of effort. However, at this time, why not take the opportunity to stuff a few people in? The Sioux family could be considered an ancient family. Although it was a small family, it had been glorious in history. They were well aware of the Thug Academy's recruitment criteria. They only wanted heavenly talents. Look at them, they haven't changed at all. Which one of them was not a human dragon or phoenix? Even the Luo family had arranged for their juniors to enter the Thug Academy. Why didn't the Sioux family take the opportunity to stand on their side? At the very least, as long as the clan's disciples didn't die, they might be able to protect the Sioux clan for 100 years. The middle-aged man's expression flickered slightly, as if he had received some kind of message. He immediately nodded and said, "Sure, 2 people it is. We have to choose for ourselves." The middle-aged man laughed. "Of course. Please come to the Sioux family for a banquet on the day of the Academy's reconstruction." After all, since they had chosen to return, they had to get to know some people. It might be inconvenient to go far away, but I have to familiarize myself with Pure Sun Island first. Han Fei thought for a moment and nodded. "Okay. In that case, how should I address you, senior?" The middle-aged man sighed in his heart. "Only now is this kid willing to call me senior. This is the pride of a genius." The middle-aged man smiled and said, "Su Yang, with your strength as a peak law enforcer, you don't deserve to be the current head of the Sioux family." Han Fei laughed in his heart. A peak-level law enforcer was not bad. If this happened in the 36 towns, it would be terrifying enough. However, compared to those rich and powerful families, they were indeed a little lacking. From the looks of it, the 2 explorers of the Sioux family were probably from the older generation. As for how strong it was, Han Fei didn't know, but it was definitely not a venerable. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for them to become a small clan. Han Fei did not say anything. First of all, they had to accept disciples, and the disciples of aristocratic families were indeed superior, even if they were from declining families. Secondly, he might stay on the Pure Sun Island for a long time in the future. If he offended everyone now, it wouldn't be appropriate either. Today's battle announced the return of the Thug Academy. As for the rest of the matter, well, it would have to wait until the school was built first. After landing, Su Yang shouted at everyone, "You occupied this place because the Thug Academy has abundant spiritual energy. Now that Master has returned, you have all seen his strength. This piece of land should be returned to its rightful owner. For the next 2 days, move out of this place and find a place to settle down." It could be seen that the deterrent power of the Sioux family in this area was very high. Although many people were unwilling, no one refuted. The point was that the 4 of them were too fierce just now. The 4 of them took down 8 law enforcers. Especially Han Fei, he won against 5 people, which made them feel a sense of powerlessness. When those teenagers looked at Han Fei and the others again, there was awe and fear in their eyes. The young men who had been thrown away and chased away by Han Fei were also silent. They couldn't afford to provoke such a genius. There was no saying that a powerful dragon couldn't suppress a local snake. They were very strong. 5 of them dared to challenge 1,000 people. Who would dare to do so? The old law enforcer who participated in the battle sighed. Everyone disperse. Go back and move. Wait a minute. Suddenly Luo Xiaobai spoke. She pointed at the middle-aged man who had been clamoring for Han Fei and the others to kneel and beg for mercy. You apologize. Han Fei and the others smiled. Although Luo Xiaobai was usually very rational, she was a woman. She couldn't bear to see herself being insulted, so naturally, she couldn't bear to see the people she cared about being insulted. Luo Xiaobai cared a lot about Han Fei, Zhang Xuanyu, and the others. After so many years, it wasn't an exaggeration to describe them as childhood sweethearts. The middle-aged man's face turned red in an instant. Now, he couldn't flare up even if he wanted to. He couldn't defeat any one of them. But as an adult, how could he apologize to a few children? Su Yang shouted, apologize seriously. The middle-aged man seemed to be slow. After hesitating for a moment, he finally took a deep breath, walked forward in a few steps, bowed and said, Lu Bing is ignorant and offended you. Please forgive me. After a long time, seeing that there was no sound, Lu Bing didn't dare to raise his head and bowed even deeper. After a while, his son supported him and said, Dad, they are gone. Lu Bing looked up in surprise and found that Han Fei and the others had already walked hundreds of meters away, and there was no movement at all. He didn't even hear them. Lu Bing's face was red. He had embarrassed himself in front of his son today. However, it was all this little bastard's fault. Wasn't he the one who provoked them first? The law enforcers bowed to Su Yang, and then someone asked, Master Su, can the Thug Academy really come back? Su Yang looked at the departing figures of Han Fei and the others and sneered. They're already back. What do you mean by really coming back? The law enforcers all took a deep breath. Then the children of our pure Sun Island, Su Yang shrugged. I can't control this matter. You have to see how they arrange it. However, let me remind you, I believe you all know what the Thug Academy used to be like. If you don't have a genius in your family, don't send yourself to them. In terms of selecting students, the 7 major sects combined aren't as strict as the Thug Academy. Sigh. After everyone dispersed, Su Yang sighed softly. He wondered if he could make the right bet. The Su family was just a small family. It wasn't impossible for them to rise. However, there were only a few who could be considered geniuses in the family. He really didn't know if they would take a liking to them. In addition, he needed to remember something else. Although the Thug Academy was good, their style of doing things had always been overbearing and even a little lawless. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been jointly killed back then. He only hoped that this time, the Thug Academy could be more stable. As long as they didn't cause a major disaster, it would be fine. Otherwise, the Su family would probably be implicated. Su Yang didn't know what his decision meant. If he had known the purpose of Han Fei and the others' return, if he had known that this involved a game between venerables, he probably wouldn't have dared to interfere in this matter. Unfortunately, there were no ifs. He only saw how powerful Han Fei and the others were and that the people of the Thug Academy had returned. They didn't know anything else. This was the limitation of a small family. In the school, Zhang Xuanyu said, there are a lot of powerhouses here. Just the pure Sun Island alone has 7 or 8 law enforcers, and there are 2 explorers behind them. This doesn't include those who didn't come. Lu Renquang nodded. We have to become a law enforcer as soon as possible. Han Fei said, there's no rush. We're not familiar with the 1,000-star city yet. When the school is rebuilt, we'll go to those places to take a look. Luo Xiaobai looked at Ku Shui and said, Grandpa Ku, ask your family to send a heritage testing stone over. Ku Shui smiled and extended his hand. Miss, it's ready. Obviously, the Luo family had long known that the Thug Academy would be rebuilt. Therefore, when they asked Ku Shui to pick them up, they had already prepared everything they needed. Luo Xiaobai threw the heritage testing stone to Han Fei. 2. Han Fei said, let's see when we get there. If there are good ones, take 2. If they're mediocre, just take them. Luo Xiaobai said in surprise. Just take them? Han Fei smiled and said, it's not a big problem. No matter how declining a family is, it's still a family. It's impossible for them to not have 1 or 2 decent children. Otherwise, this family would have been wiped out long ago. It's impossible for them to survive until now. Even if they arranged it themselves, they would have found 2 good seedlings. Otherwise, why would Su Yang mention this to me? Han Fei clapped his hands and said, okay, the people have been cleaned up. You guys continue to clean up the unclean places. I'm going to build a house. He was almost a law enforcer. Building a house was as simple as cleaning up the site. The only thing Han Fei had to consider was how big the house should be. What type of house should he build? What style should he use? Since he was going to build it, he naturally wanted to slack off. Why don't he build a school library? As for the few of them, couldn't they just build a tree house and sleep on a tree? As for a classroom, there was no need. How should he build a house? There was no need to consider too much. The main thing was that it had to be grand and imposing. Only in this way could it match the temperament of the Thug Academy. However, it wouldn't do if the house was too big. When the Thug Academy returned to the Thousand-Star City, they would definitely be at the forefront of the struggle. What if they came to cause trouble? What could they do? Therefore, he had to create some killing arrays. Finally, the Thug Academy wanted to recruit students. It would be great if this house could automatically assess students. It doesn't have to be a house. Something else seems to be fine. It had to be grand, have a killing array, and be used as a checkpoint. Han Fei only had 2 inspirations in his mind. Or rather, they weren't buildings. That was the maze, the dimensional killing formation. Chapter 990. Han Fei had seen a square plant labyrinth. That was a wall made of plants, which could be moved and used as an ambush array, making people unable to find the exit. If he used the plant wall as the lines of the array, coupled with a spirit-gathering array to replenish spiritual energy, he could seal the top. This would become the deep-sea stone forest, where the rock-holding turtle was imprisoned in the level 2 fishery, but it was very difficult to make. As for the dimensional killing array, it was a bit difficult, but it didn't seem difficult to make a Rubik's Cube. He had to make a big Rubik's Cube and use it as a library. In this way, he could set up a serial killing array in each square. Turning the Rubik's Cube from time to time could ensure that nothing went wrong. However, this Rubik's Cube didn't seem simple. It was not difficult to build, but difficult to set up arrays. With his current level of arrays, the killing array he made might not be powerful enough. At most, it could block the attacks of law enforcers. Forget it, I can only make it first and then slowly upgrade and strengthen it later. Han Fei muttered to himself. As for the other things, such as the canteen and dormitory, he could just put them in the back mountain and live in the trees like before. As for the training ground for students, he could arrange it in the maze. Thinking of this, Han Fei suddenly felt that it was perfect. Now, not only could he solve the problem of school construction, but he could also train students and didn't need to build so many houses. Flattening the ground all the way, Han Fei had already flown into the sky, flying head down, and was studying how to set up arrays. Lu Renquang shouted, "What are you doing?" Han Fei said impatiently, "Just do your thing. I'm doing construction." Li Lu Luo followed Luo Xiaobai and was turning the ground, muttering, "I think he's just lazy." Luo Xiaobai shook her head. "No. Although Han Fei doesn't mean what he says, he's still very reliable." Li Lu Luo grinned and waved at Han Fei. "I want to build a small villa at the Empyrean waterfall." Han Fei waved his hand and said, "What are you thinking? The Thug Academy doesn't provide dormitories. Later, go to the forest and build it yourself." Han Fei held the fish skin map in his hand and pondered it over and over again. "No, it has to be mobile. No, it's too troublesome to move. I can use teleportation arrays instead. Well, in addition to the killing array, I also have to make a defensive array to protect the plant wall. Which killing array should I throw? Forget it, throw them all in. Half a day passed in the blink of an eye. In the evening, a group of people sat at the back of the mountain, eating hot pot. Han Fei was still studying the fish skin map in his hand. Under normal circumstances, cooking was Lu Renquang's job. After many years of experience, although there was still a gap between him and Han Fei, this fatty had mastered all the basic dishes, and the taste was not bad. Lu Renquang said, "Fei Fei, when it's time to eat, you have to eat properly. Only then will there be flavor." Zhang Xuanyu leaned over and asked, "What are these fancy drawings of yours?" Han Fei pushed his head away and said, "I want to build a school different from the 7 major sections. Now I finally understand why there are so many ruins and secret realms in this world. They were all created by humans." Everyone, even Luo Xiaobai, was dumbfounded. How did building a house have anything to do with relics and treasure troves? The third day, everything had been settled. The wood and stones collected by Zhang Xuanyu and Lu Renquang had piled up into a hill. At this moment, everyone was squatting on a piece of wood, watching Han Fei stand and wander in front of the pile of wood and stones. They all wanted to see what Han Fei was going to do. Suddenly, Han Fei took out a large piece of wood from Forge the Universe. Luo Xiaobai's eyes immediately narrowed. Big red trunk. Zhang Xuanyu's eyes widened. What? Didn't it disappear? Lu Renquang muttered, "I don't think it disappeared, but was uprooted by Han Fei. According to his character, it is very likely that he would do such a thing." Li Luoluo was dumbfounded. "So, this is the tree in the center of the seaborne grassland in the level 3 fishery?" The old man, Ku Shui, also watched this scene with interest. Although the big red trunk was not valuable to Han Fei and the others now, it was still valuable. But no matter how worthless it was, he had to see how big this material was, right? Clatter! A massive amount of spiritual spring water gushed out, instantly ignited, and soared high with the spiritual fire. Han Fei's sudden move startled everyone and they were all dumbfounded. Even old man Ku Shui was dumbfounded. After a while, he said, "Young Master Han Fei, are you refining?" Everyone was stunned. The corners of Luo Xiaobai's mouth twitched. "So big? Refining what?" Zhang Xuanyu gulped and swallowed. "Are you crazy? How much spiritual spring water is this?" Lu Renquang forgot to stuff the dried fish into his mouth and said with a dumbfounded look, "Aren't we building a house? By refining?" Under everyone's dumbfounded gaze, a huge red ball slowly appeared. It had a diameter of 50 meters. This was the diameter of the big red trunk itself. Now Han Fei had taken out a ball. However, after this ball came out, the ball gradually began to deform. Above, below, left, right, front, back, and behind the ball, there were more sticks sticking out. Then, it deformed again, turning into a complex circular screw shape. In fact, Han Fei didn't really refine it, mainly because there was no need. This was just the inner part of a normal Rubik's Cube. As long as the outer frame was constructed, it would become a 4th-order Rubik's Cube. At first, Han Fei felt that the 3rd-order Rubik's Cube was too simple and the 5th order was too troublesome, so he made a 4th-order one. Unfortunately, the inner part itself was only 50 meters in diameter. Therefore, the entire Rubik's Cube was only about 80 meters long on each side. While everyone was dumbfounded, Han Fei began to refine the stone. This one was much faster. After adding a little of the big red trunk's leftover material, the quality was not bad, just enough to reach the level of an ordinary weapon. Of course, if Han Fei wanted to, it could be better. However, that would cost a lot of spiritual energy. Besides, a real spiritual weapon required a complete refining process, which was too expensive. More than 4 hours later, 56 strange parts with different shapes and sizes appeared. All the parts had 1 or 2 or even 3 square faces. Because the 4th-order Rubik's Cube had a total of 8 corner blocks, 24 side blocks, and 24 center blocks. That was why everyone was baffled by what they saw. Han Fei shouted, "Xiaobai, Li Luoluo, come and help." Luo Xiaobai and Li Luoluo walked over in a daze. Han Fei divided the 56 pieces into several piles, wrote down the colors and said, "Come on, color these faces. Don't make mistakes. On the ground there are 6 colors: orange, red, yellow, white, blue, and green." Li Luoluo frowned and grinned. "Is this the house you were talking about?" Han Fei said, "You underestimate me, don't you? You have a lot of colors. You color them." Lu Renkuang and Zhang Xuanyu sat on the log, eating dried fish while watching Han Fei and the others do fancy things. In the end, they painted the blocks in different colors. When everything was done, Han Fei refined again. In the end, a square hexahedron appeared in front of everyone. Zhang Xuanyu finally couldn't help but say, "Fei Fei, what is this?" Han Fei grinned. "The Rubik's Cube. If it was just a Rubik's Cube, then it wouldn't be a real dimensional killing array. Otherwise, it would be a whole 64 pieces without any internal part." It was not that he couldn't refine it, but the cost was too high. Without the internal parts, the final solution was to refine this thing into a huge spiritual weapon. Even if he drained all his spiritual energy, it wouldn't be enough. However, Han Fei didn't need it to be a huge spiritual weapon, just an ordinary one. Han Fei looked at the huge 6-colored cube with satisfaction and suddenly grinned. "Rise!" Suddenly, everyone saw the Rubik's Cube fly up and stop at a height of more than 30 meters. Ku Shui was puzzled. "Young Master Han Fei, did you add a floating stone to this cube?" Han Fei immediately grinned and said, "You have good taste." Ku Shui smiled faintly. "What kind of taste is this? Without the floating stone, it wouldn't be able to fly even if you didn't refine a spiritual weapon." Lu Renkuang asked, "Is this a house?" Zhang Xuanyu grinned. "How can a house look like this?" Li Luoluo quite liked it. "No. I think it looks good." Luo Xiaobai didn't say anything. She didn't understand. For the first time, she felt that her IQ was not high enough. Han Fei chuckled. "It looks good, doesn't it? There are better ones." With a thought from Han Fei, the entire Rubik's Cube began to spin. After a few turns, the originally beautiful 6 complete colors had completely scattered. "Wow! F***CK. What's this? It can spin?" Luo Xiaobai's face changed drastically. "Han Fei, how do we turn it back?" The old man's pupils constricted, and he took a breath. "Isn't it a marvelous work? Doesn't it have infinite changes?" Han Fei said with a smile, "Not yet. I haven't set up an array yet. When I set up all the arrays, this thing can spin automatically. At that time, even I don't know what array I will encounter when I go in. Isn't it amazing?" Everyone was silent. After a long time, Lu Renkuang said leisurely, "Then how do we get in the end?" Han Fei said with a smile, "Don't panic. When I finish setting up the array, I will add a self-destruct array. At that time, if someone wants to open it by force, he will get nothing. This is our school's library. You must put the 6 colors together into one, and you can only enter if you don't make any mistake." Zhang Xuanyu said leisurely, "How do you put this thing together?" Han Fei said in his heart, "Just like this." The Rubik's Cube library began to spin and spin countless times. Even Luo Xiaobai was dumbfounded, and the Rubik's Cube slowly recovered. Zhang Xuanyu took a breath. "Just like, what? I just saw it clicking, but I didn't understand any of it." Lu Renkuang scratched his head. "Oh, I guess I won't be able to enter the library for the rest of my life." Li Luoluo's face stiffened. "I think it's better to build a house normally." Chapter 991. In front of the Rubik's Cube, everyone, including Ku Shui, was a little dumbfounded. They probably wouldn't be able to get in unless they dismantled this thing. But in fact, this Rubik's Cube itself was not a particularly rare thing. It was just a weird shape. If someone really wanted to touch this Rubik's Cube, they must want to take the things inside. However, if they couldn't restore the Rubik's Cube, they couldn't take the things inside. Therefore, even if Han Fei and the others were not here, it didn't matter if someone broke in. If the Rubik's Cube was destroyed, they could build another one. Ku Shui couldn't help but sigh. Brilliant! Miss is with such an extremely brilliant heavenly talent. No wonder she grew so fast. This fantastic idea is comparable to the God's Memorial Tower. Only Luo Xiaobai's eyes flickered. No, the Rubik's Cube library has infinite changes, and the result is different every time it is rotated. So, it's impossible to turn the Rubik's Cube like this with the same rotation method just now. Han Fei grinned. There is an incantation. However, this incantation can only be known by the insiders of the Thug Academy. Outsiders can't know it. Phew. Phew, Zhang Xuanyu and Lu Renkuang heaved a long sigh of relief. As long as there was an incantation, otherwise they would never be able to get in. Li Luo looked at Han Fei curiously. What's wrong with your brain? Han Fei sneered. Who am I? You won't know how talented I am until you know me for a long time. Luo Xiaobai rolled her eyes. Okay, stop bragging. You said it's not done yet. How much longer will it take? Han Fei thought for a moment. The difficulty is not in the construction, but the arrays. I want to fill every Rubik's Cube with killing arrays and connect every block with each other. It will take another 3 days. Zhang Xuanyu curled his lips. I thought it would take a long time. Then hurry up. Han Fei took out a drawing and said, Xiaobai, follow my drawing and set up a maze with spiritual plants. Lay these pieces of wood into the pattern on the drawing. Luo Xiaobai took the drawings and looked at them. She was dazzled. Is this building a school? Is this a big array? On the drawing, it was a square wall of vegetation, and the inside was filled with road. The center of the map was where the Rubik's Cube was located. The square on the map had a diameter of more than 300 miles. Who the hell could walk through it? Even Luo Xiaobai couldn't help but curse. Who could walk in here? If he didn't use the teleportation formation, didn't fly, and didn't use his senses, he could only rely on his luck to walk in. Luo Xiaobai said unhurriedly, Is it really necessary? Han Fei waved his hand and said, Not at all. We have too many enemies, we have to take precautions. Luo Xiaobai rolled her eyes. If an explorer comes, the arrays you set up can't possibly resist them, can they? Han Fei smiled and said, If a peak-level law enforcer comes, I might not be able to stop him. However, we can slowly perfect it. When we set up more and more array formations, and when we reach the peak of law enforcers, I'm afraid that even explorers will cry when they come. Luo Xiaobai looked at Han Fei thoughtfully. You're quite thoughtful. Zhang Xuanyu and the other two hurried over. Zhang Xuanyu muttered, Let me see if there's anything new. Afterward, Zhang Xuanyu covered his eyes. Oh my God! Forget it, I'll pave the floor. Yes, I'll pave the floor. The dried fish in Lu Renkuang's hand dropped. I'll help trim the flowers and plants. I'm familiar with this. I've worked in the plantation in the Blue Sea town. Li Luoluo was dumbfounded. I heard that you have the habit of farming. There are still hundreds of kilometers of land outside that haven't been loosened. I'll go and loosen the soil for them. 5 days later. Luo Xiaobai and the others each had a fish skin map in their hands, on which there were formulas. Lu Renkuang rubbed his head. Clockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise, counterclockwise, clockwise. Hey, where am I? Forget it, let's start again. Li Luoluo muttered. Right clockwise, top clockwise, back clockwise, right clockwise. Oh, it's so annoying. Luo Xiaobai shattered the fish skin map without saying a word. Where is Han Fei? Miss, young Master Han Fei is setting up a huge spirit gathering array. In one array, there are more than 30 medium-sized arrays. In each medium-sized array, there are more than 30 small arrays. Young Master Han Fei is really a genius. Luo Xiaobai rolled her eyes. Okay. Then let's wait a little longer. It wasn't until this afternoon that Han Fei flew over from the air. At this moment, the maze hadn't been covered with a seal yet. This was something that Han Fei couldn't do with his current means. He thought he'd better wait until he became a law enforcer in the future. Let's do this first. Han Fei smiled and said, "Dang dang dang. How about it? Have you memorized it?" "Yes, we can go out. I can sense that someone is waiting for us outside our academy every day." In fact, there were more than a few people waiting outside every day. There were dozens of people waiting outside every day. Or rather, those people were not waiting for Han Fei and the others, but watching the maze. Because the magic cube was a little far from them, most people actually couldn't see it. However, this huge maze attracted their attention. But without Han Fei's permission, no one dared to come in. If they were kicked out again, they would lose face. And as soon as Han Fei asked everyone, he saw Zhang Xuanyu, Lu Renquang, and Li Luoluo looking at him bitterly. Li Luoluo pouted speechlessly. "I've only memorized half of it." Zhang Xuanyu chuckled. "I've already memorized 70% to 80%. Han Fei looked at Lu Renquang, who was stunned for a moment. Give me a few more days." Han Fei. Fortunately, Han Fei didn't need to ask Luo Xiaobai. She must have already memorized it. At this moment, he patted Lu Renquang's shoulder and said, "How about this? Eat a mouthful of hot pot on the left and a mouthful of braised pork on the right. Just memorize it like this. It's simple." Lu Renquang's eyes lit up. "Good idea. It's much more interesting than this." As for Ku Shui, Han Fei naturally didn't give him the incantation. After all, this was the secret of the Thug Academy. After all, Ku Shui was a member of the Luo family, so he couldn't be generalized. Han Fei said, "Okay, let's go through the maze with me. Let's go to the banquet tonight." Luo Xiaobai said, "Okay." Zhang Xuanyu was puzzled. "Fei, I have a question that I don't understand." Zhang Xuanyu said, "Why do you often stop halfway through the floor in your blueprint?" Han Fei smiled. "It's a smoke screen. You'll know what it's used for when school starts." In the evening, when Han Fei and the others appeared outside the maze, a member of the Su family immediately came up to greet them. "My family master invites you to a banquet." Han Fei nodded. Okay, wait a moment." Han Fei took out a big sign and inserted it into the ground. On it was written, "There is a killing array inside. Do not trespass. Otherwise, your life may be in danger." When the group of people saw this sign, they all gasped. "Such a big array?" Immediately, someone asked, "Excuse me, does the Thug Academy enroll students?" Han Fei smiled and said, "Don't panic, everyone. Wait for us to go to the Su family's banquet. At that time, I will announce the admission standards of the Thug Academy. Everyone will have a chance." Hearing that everyone would have a chance, many people's eyes lit up. Recently, the older generation of their families always talked about how powerful the Thug Academy was and how the disciples in the academy were heavenly talents. They thought that they would only accept the disciples of the big clans, but they didn't expect that everyone would have a chance. How could they not be happy? Han Fei glanced at the member of the Su family and said, "Lead the way." The Pure Sun Island was actually very large. It covered an area of more than 2,000 square kilometers, which was as large as the Wind Thunder Town. Of course, it wasn't circular. Instead, it was in the shape of an irregular strip. After the Thug Academy came, it occupied about 1/3 of the area. When they passed by their plantation on fishing boats, they were still discussing whether they should also build a few spirit-gathering arrays in the plantation. After a moment, on the bank of a large river, they saw residences dozens of kilometers away from Mianyang. The whole house was brightly lit as if they had already received the news. The scene was just like the palace compound that Han Fei knew. There were groups of houses, decorated with lanterns, and it was very lively. Of course, Han Fei and the others knew very well that they didn't come here for their sake, but for the sake of the reputation of the Thug Academy and the big shots behind it. In front of the house there were endless guests. Because it was a welcoming banquet, there were no gifts prepared. It could be said that many famous people on the entire Pure Sun Island had come. They had long heard about the reconstruction of the Thug Academy. It was said that 5 peak-level hidden fishers were undefeated in a battle against 1,000 people. There was even a young man who fought against 5 law enforcers alone. Many people were dumbfounded when they heard it, who didn't want to come and see it. At this moment, Han Fei and the others had just landed. An old steward came up to greet them. He seemed to have been waiting for a long time. The steward was also very strong. He was actually a law enforcer. Obviously, he was specially here to welcome Han Fei and the others. The steward hurriedly stepped forward and said with a smile, "Are you Han Fei and the 5 young masters? The few of you have finally arrived. The patriarch has instructed us not to neglect the few young masters. Because we just learned that you've rebuilt the academy, we're in a hurry and have just sent out invitations. If you don't mind, I'm willing to lead you into the academy." Han Fei looked at Luo Xiaobai, who bowed slightly. "There's no need to trouble us. The steward is a law enforcer. It'll be too ostentatious if he follows us. You just need to send someone to follow us. This way, our identities won't be exposed. When the banquet begins, we can go over by ourselves." Just as the steward was about to speak, Ku Shui said with a smile, "My miss is right. Steward of the Su family, you don't have to worry." Han Fei nodded and said, "We'll walk by ourselves." Luo Xiaobai glanced at Ku Shui. "Grandpa Ku, you don't have to follow us. Otherwise, it'll be too eye-catching." Yes, Mississippi. Chapter 992. Han Fei and the others blended into the crowd at the door. Although some people felt that they were unfamiliar, because they hadn't seen the scene when Han Fei and the others came, they just thought that they were teenagers from a certain family. And Han Fei and the others were quite low-key. In fact, although Luo Xiaobai was very polite just now, she actually said, "We need to see the Su family for ourselves, not what you show us." This was the way children of big clans spoke, tactfully but forcefully. And Luo Xiaobai had always been a meticulous person. Since they came to the Su family to accept disciples, they had to see what the Su family was like. Therefore, after entering the door, they pretended to be passers-by. Of course, this didn't prevent the Su family from covering up very well. Behind Han Fei and the others was only a servant of the Su family who was a hanging fisher. At this moment, the man secretly glanced at Han Fei and the others and said a little cautiously, "Young masters, do you need me to take you around?" Luo Xiaobai shook her head. "No, just follow me. Don't make a sound if you see anything." The servant hurriedly bowed his head and said, "Yes." Elegant things like gardens and landscapes were actually nothing to look at. Usually, rich families would pursue some hedonistic things. Of course, it was also about sentiment. Han Fei and the others soon left the crowd and walked to a remote place. After all, the Su family was very big. Even if it had declined, it was still like a palace. Small bridges, flowing water, pavilions, rockery, and small sceneries were everywhere. But this kind of appreciable place was not what Han Fei and the others were aiming for. In Luo Xiaobai's words, to see what a family was like, they had to see what the ordinary members of this family were like. Then, they had to see what the bottom members of this family were like. Finally, they had to see what the high-level members were like. In this way, they might be able to see something. Along the way, Han Fei and the others met a lot of people. Of course, in many courtyards there were people on duty. These people were not difficult to talk to. After knowing Han Fei and the others' identities, they could walk freely. In fact, in such a family there was actually no one on duty at all. If someone really dared to come in, it was impossible to be discovered by these people on duty. Therefore, this was just some decorations. When Han Fei and the others completely left the crowd, Han Fei suddenly said, "Wait for me." Li Luoluo asked, "Why?" Han Fei closed his eyes and listened in all directions. He automatically ignored the noise from the front door. He only listened to the silence. The imperial palace had 9,999 rooms, and there was even a place like the Cold Palace. In the Su family it was not much different. Although Han Fei's perception was large, he didn't sweep it wantonly. However, through the sounds coming from everywhere, one could also determine the original appearance of the Su family. About 20 kilometers away from Han Fei, in a courtyard, a woman's voice was arguing about something. A voice said indignantly, "Why can't my Sanxian attend the banquet? Sanxian is already 12 years old this year. Her talent isn't bad." Another female voice shouted, "You should know that this matter concerns the rise and fall of the Su clan. There were only 2 places to enter the Thug Academy. How many families in the direct line of the clan were fighting over this? How many people were being oppressed? Su Sanxian's talent was average, so it would be better if he didn't go. Do you know how many people you'll offend if you don't get chosen?" In the courtyard, a plainly dressed woman was indignantly arguing with a servant girl dressed in relatively luxurious clothes. Beside him stood a young man with an expressionless face. "Mom, I'm not going." The woman hurriedly said, "Son, this is the only chance to stand out. Even if you have to risk your life, you have to go." The maidservant sneered. "Is it your turn to risk your life? Don't you think about how many branches there are in the family? Do you think you, an orphan and a widow, can deal with any random family? I'm doing this for your own good. Su Sanxian, you have to be sensible. You can't go to this banquet. Otherwise, you will be harming yourselves." The maidservant seemed to be consoling him, but in fact, her expression was indifferent. She didn't like the mother and son at all and was even a little bossy. The woman suddenly turned serious. "Su Sanxian, I'm your mother. Instead of being depressed in this small courtyard, why don't you give it a try? When your father was around, he didn't have any say. Now that he's dead, are you willing to live under someone else's roof for the rest of your life?" As the woman spoke, her eyes were red and tears welled up in her eyes as she stared at her son. The young man clenched his fists tightly, feeling grief and indignation in his heart. He looked at his mother, who was in pain, and then at the indifferent maidservant. Finally, he gritted his teeth and said, "I'll go." "Why are you going?" The maidservant's expression immediately turned cold. She looked coldly at Su Sanxian and his mother and said, "It's best to know your limits. Although you're a bastard, you still have a chance to stand out. However, if you leave this door today, only death awaits you." Outside, Luo Xiaobai and the others had already arrived under Han Fei's lead. In fact, Han Fei heard many people discussing the Thug Academy. After all, everyone had already received the news before coming. Many of the older generation knew how glorious the Thug Academy was. Therefore, the discussions never stopped. However, there were really no people like Su Sanxian and his mother who wanted to go to the banquet with their lives on the line. Luo Xiaobai looked at Han Fei and frowned. There are actually many branches in the aristocratic families. These people usually don't have high statuses. Furthermore, there are many factions within the large clans. It's almost impossible for a bastard to stand out. Zhang Xuanyu said angrily, "I hate such arrogant people the most. I want to see what right a maidservant has." Just as Zhang Xuanyu was about to walk in, he was stopped by Han Fei. Han Fei looked at Zhang Xuanyu strangely. This guy didn't seem to have a good background. He probably couldn't stand this. Han Fei said, "There's no rush. Let's take a look first." The hanging fisher following them had a cold sweat on his back at this moment. The family master had already explicitly forbidden them from causing trouble at the banquet. Why didn't these people listen? What was wrong with their brains? In the courtyard, Su Sanxian's mother refused to give in and stubbornly said, "My son will definitely go today. You don't want to cause a commotion here, right?" The maidservant's expression changed slightly. "Why? Do you want to fight?" At that moment, the maidservant used a strange footwork technique. With a flash, she grabbed the woman's neck. "Don't touch my mother!" Su Sanqian shouted, but he was too weak. How could a junior fishing master be faster than a peak-level hanging fisher? However, with a shockwave, he was sent flying. Sanqian. Because the maidservant didn't really want to hurt anyone, Su Sanqian only flew out. At that moment, the spider silk latched onto the ground. Su Sanqian twisted his body, and a long rod appeared in his hand as he tried to counterattack. Li Luoluo said in surprise, "Ah, this child is a manipulator and a soul warrior." Su Sanqian's mother tried to block with a finger seal. However, she was a little weak after all, and her neck was grabbed by the maidservant. The maidservant casually grabbed Su Sanqian's rod and said coldly, "You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit? How dare you not give third Madam face? Just wait to be swept out of the 1,000-star city. Actually, Yang Qing'er, if it weren't for the main family, do you think you can stay in the 1,000-star city with your little strength?" "Let go of my mother," the maidservant sneered. "If you really care about your mother, you should stay here obediently. Don't have those improper thoughts. I'll teach you a lesson today. If you dare to cause trouble again, no one will be able to save you." How arrogant! Just as the maidservant was about to teach the mother and son a lesson, a magnetic voice sounded behind her. The maidservant's expression immediately changed. She hurriedly turned around and saw an extremely handsome young man leaning against the wall, watching this scene indifferently. The maidservant was stunned by the handsome appearance of the newcomer. She was certain that she had never seen this person before. As if feeling that her current image wasn't good, she hurriedly retracted her hand and bowed slightly to Zhang Xuanyu. "Young master, you are?" Zhang Xuanyu's lips curled up. "Didn't you want to teach them a lesson? Why aren't you attacking?" As if sensing Zhang Xuanyu's mockery, the maidservant's expression changed slightly. The newcomer wasn't friendly. Her expression immediately turned cold. "Young master, are you here to attend the banquet? However, this is the Su family's side residence. Young master, you shouldn't be here." Zhang Xuanyu smiled and said, "I'm standing here now. Is there a problem?" Opposite him, the woman hurriedly ran in front of Su Sanqian and protected him behind her. Not just anyone could barge into the Su family's residence. The newcomer was probably extraordinary. The maidservant frowned. "Young master, this is a family matter of the Su family. You shouldn't interfere." Zhang Xuanyu sneered. "Is this how the Su family treats their own family? Are bastards not human? Bastards can't even attend banquets? This is the first time I've heard of this." As he spoke, Zhang Xuanyu looked at Su Sanqian and his son. "Go ahead. Don't mind her." "Stop." The maidservant blocked the way and looked at Zhang Xuanyu with an unfriendly expression. "Young master, aren't you being too nosy?" Under the pressure, the maidservant immediately staggered and blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Who was Zhang Xuanyu? He had a powerful soul and was best at soul attack. Facing a peak-level hanging fisher, how could a peak-level hanging fisher withstand the pressure of a peak-level hanging fisher? Zhang Xuanyu curled his lips and smiled evilly. "I'm interfering. What can you do? Why don't you get your master to look for me?" Chapter 993. Why was Zhang Xuanyu the one who made a move? Naturally, he was the one who wanted to make a move the most. Han Fei crossed his arms and watched from the side. Luo Xiaobai said, "It's not uncommon for people to have two professions. There are even people with 3 professions. This child's reaction speed is very fast. His talent should be good." Han Fei smiled and said, "If his aptitude was poor, I don't think anyone would stop him from attending the banquet." The flesh on Lu Renkuang's face trembled as he said, "Actually, should we accept him?" Li Luoluo suddenly said, "Did you guys notice that there's something wrong?" Han Fei and the others looked at Li Luoluo. "What's the problem?" Li Luoluo said, "There's something wrong with that child's spider silk. It's poisonous. Furthermore, the power that he erupted with just now exceeded that of a junior fishing master. He should have used some special secret technique. Furthermore, his mother did the same. Although she was restrained by the maidservant just now, you definitely didn't notice that poison was spreading on one of her fingers. She deliberately let the maidservant restrain her. Han Fei and the others were slightly shocked. Because the level of this battle was very low for them, no one paid careful attention. Hearing Li Luolua's words, Han Fei and the others couldn't help but be speechless. Luo Xiaobai said, "I remember now. In the Thousand-Star City there are actually many people who don't live a good life. They can't come into contact with profound things, so they will accept and cultivate some unorthodox things. And among this group of people, most of them are hunters." Han Fei frowned and said, "Unorthodox?" Luo Xiaobai said indifferently, "It's just a form of address. It usually appears at the bottom of society. Someone had once relied on such a cultivation method to rise to power. Therefore, there are actually many people who take this path. There's a joke that there are 800 unorthodox methods and 3,000 unorthodox methods." Han Fei grinned. "Interesting." In the courtyard, the maidservant glared at Zhang Xuanyu. "Young master, do you know what you're doing?" Zhang Xuanyu leaned against the wall and didn't even move. Instead, he looked at the mother and son and said, "Aren't we going to the banquet? Go." Yang Qing'er hurriedly bowed to Zhang Xuanyu. "Thank you for your help, young master." With that, Yang Qing'er pulled Su Sanqian and walked to the outer courtyard. Although Zhang Xuanyu had helped, she couldn't believe it. Zhang Xuanyu was too young, but he was still so strong. This meant that the other party had a powerful background. After all, she was someone who had seen the world. She knew that there were many disciples from prestigious clans. Helping out was just a casual action. Furthermore, there were some who were plotting even more. Therefore, she did not dare to believe it easily. If this person had other plans, the mother and son would not be able to resist. Seeing that the mother and son had left, Zhang Xuanyu clicked his tongue and said, "He looks pretty good, but he's not my fish." Buzz. Zhang Xuanyu withdrew his pressure and walked out lazily. He didn't bicker with the maid, but he knew what would happen next. He was looking forward to it. The servant girl naturally did not dare to argue with Zhang Xuanyu. Seeing that Zhang Xuanyu had left, he heaved a sigh of relief and then left in a hurry. Not far from the courtyard, Han Fei looked at Zhang Xuanyu with a faint smile and said, "I thought you would take him in directly. That kid looks pretty good." Zhang Xuanyu grinned and said, "It's one thing to help, but it's another to take him in. I know this. Today, it depends on his performance. It depends on how he performs at the banquet later." Han Fei and the others had high standards, and it didn't matter if they had a spiritual heritage testing stone or not. After all, everyone's initial spiritual heritage was not high, including Xia Shaochan. The one with the highest spiritual heritage was probably Lu Renquang. Of course, growing spiritual heritage was not a problem. It turned out that as long as there were enough opportunities, it was not impossible to get a way to improve one's spiritual heritage. The few of them strolled around again. During this period, they also secretly peeked at a few children, but nothing special happened. Just after half an hour, when Han Fei and the others were about to continue to stroll around and see the children of the Su family's direct bloodline, a group of people suddenly came and blocked Han Fei and the others in a garden. Zhang Xuanyu smiled and said, "Look, I know this trick. I knew it would come." A woman appeared in front of Han Fei and the others with an old servant and two maidservants. The beautiful woman pointed at Zhang Xuanyu with a cold expression and said, "Lu, is this the person you said?" The maidservant who had been sent away by Zhang Xuanyu raised her head. "Madam, it's him. He's the one who let Su Sanqian and his mother go. Take him down." Without asking for the reason, the beautiful woman pointed at Zhang Xuanyu arrogantly. This was because she knew that there was no one on Pure Sun Island that she couldn't afford to offend. Who cared which family he was from? She just had to take him down. As for living in the inner courtyard, she only knew that the Thug Academy was about to return. Su Yang was about to introduce Han Fei and the others to the outside world. Before the introduction, she naturally didn't say much. This made the beautiful woman feel that those who could take in disciples must be middle-aged or even old men. How could they be such young people? In fact, if she went out often and knew what was happening in the outside world, she would definitely discover Han Fei and the others' uniqueness immediately. However, as soon as she appeared, she wanted to take them down. Even Han Fei and the others were a little surprised. The old man behind the beautiful woman appeared in front of Zhang Xuanyu in the blink of an eye. The latter directly exploded, and almost instantly, the corridor where Han Fei and the others were collapsed. The beautiful woman and the two maidservants vomited blood and were sent flying. As for the old servant who attacked, he bled from his 7 orifices and was blasted away by a punch. A house collapsed and the ground shook 3 times. Han Fei couldn't help but look at Luo Xiaobai. Didn't you say that these people are very shrewd? Why? Luo Xiaobai was silent for a while. Perhaps this is an exception. Han Fei looked at the hanging fisher servant behind them. Because of Han Fei and the others' protection, this person was only standing in the ruins and wasn't injured. This person was sweating profusely as he respectfully sent a voice transmission. This is Second Master's third madam. After all, this person was a member of the Su family. He still wanted to live, so he only said the identity of the visitor and didn't reveal anything. And Miss Zhao was also a peak-level hidden fisher, so the soul explosion just now wasn't aimed at her. Therefore, she was just embarrassed, unlike her 2 maidservants who were bleeding from their 7 orifices and fell to the ground. At this moment, she was horrified. Who are you? The moment Zhang Xuanyu dared to make a move, she realized that she had overlooked something. Zhang Xuanyu grinned and said, "Why? Where's your imposing manner just now?" Luo Xiaobai looked up at the sky. Don't tell me the Su family didn't notice this? As soon as Luo Xiaobai said that, she saw 2 old men appear together. One was old man Ku Shui with a smile on his face, and the other had an ugly expression. When the beautiful woman saw the old man, her expression changed drastically. Second Patriarch, why are you here? The old man snorted. Why am I here? Usually, if you threw a tantrum, the family would turn a blind eye to it. But today, you offended a distinguished guest of the Thug Academy. What do you want? When Han Fei and the others heard this, they didn't panic. They were just a little puzzled, as if they had been schemed against. The old man turned around and smiled at Han Fei and the others. Little friends, the Zhang family has been negligent in this matter. The Zhang family will definitely punish you severely. The old man's gaze turned cold as he glanced at the beautiful woman and shouted at the void, "Su Cheng, get over here." No one knew who the old man was talking to, but a figure flew over at an extremely fast speed. It was a middle-aged man at the level of a junior law enforcer. This person glanced around and immediately scolded, "Xiao Baobao, what did you do? Hurry up and apologize to me." The old man snorted and said, "Your wife is usually unruly and willful. Today is a busy day. I was slightly careless and she actually offended a young friend from the Thug Academy. She must be severely punished. From today onwards, Xiao Baobao is no longer the daughter-in-law of the Su family. Tell her to scram back to the Zhao family." Zhang Xuanyu and the others were surprised. F***ck, is the punishment so severe? They looked at each other. Although this was very satisfying, it didn't seem necessary, right? The beautiful woman was dumbfounded. Although she was shocked by the identities of Han Fei and the others, how could she be divorced? Su Cheng's expression was ugly. He went up and slapped her twice. He berated, "All right. Do you want to cause trouble for the Su family? Good. Your Zhao family is amazing. They actually raised a woman like you." Then, she heard Su Cheng scolding her, and a magical divorce letter appeared. Zhao Baobao cried and cursed, Su Qing, you son of AB*TC. This is clearly a misunderstanding. Your Su family bullied me. If you dare to divorce me today, I'll fight you to the death. Han Fei and the others had already become onlookers. For some reason, they had become spectators. However, Luo Xiaobai said via voice transmission, we've been tricked. The Su family was waiting for us to come and investigate. They were waiting for us to have a conflict with this woman so that they could take the opportunity to chase this woman away. Han Fei and the others were dumbfounded. Why? Luo Xiaobai said, from the conversation, the Zhao family is stronger than the Su family. To be able to force the Su family to use us to chase this woman away, it means that they need this excuse. Because of the involvement of the Thug Academy, the Zhao family definitely won't dare to retaliate for the time being. If they want to rope us in, it means that the Su family is either far inferior to the Zhao family, or they're thinking about the future. Once the lifespan of an explorer is broken, the Su family may be involved by the Zhao family. The result can be imagined. If the Su family is completely destroyed, the Zhao family will annex the Su family's resources and rise. Han Fei took a deep breath. You figured it out just like that? Li Luoluo was dumbfounded. Are they so scheming? Zhang Xuanyu sneered. For a big family, nothing is impossible. Lu Renquang stuffed dried fish into his mouth. It's so complicated. I don't want to understand. Luo Xiaobai said, however, we won't be used for nothing. Chapter 994. He wondered if Luo Xiaobai had ever encountered such a cliché divorce? Anyway, Han Fei and the others had never encountered such a thing. How could he divorce his wife just like that? Su Qing clearly knew about it long ago, and even slapped his wife twice. This scene could be seen in a TV series. This matter was resolved very quickly. In less than half an hour, while Zhao Baby was cursing, she had already been taken away. Han Fei and the others sighed. Did the TV series end so quickly? Only then did Su Qing come to Han Fei and the others and apologize. As for the explorer known as the Second Patriarch, he stayed behind and smiled at Han Fei and the others. My little friends, I'm really sorry. Although we shouldn't wash our dirty linen in public, we really had no choice this time. Luo Xiaobai asked, what compensation? Luo Xiaobai was straightforward enough. She had seen through this trick long ago. Furthermore, she was smart enough to know that since it had already happened, the Thug Academy had a share in this matter. Although her impression of the Su family had plummeted, this wasn't the time to fall out. Asking for compensation was the best choice. Han Fei smiled and said, before that, we still need to know one more thing. I just want to know if the mother and daughter in the small courtyard were acting. The old man shook his head with a smile. That was definitely not an act. That mother and son did take the unorthodox path, but that child's talent is really good. A low-grade LV6 spirit vein might not be able to enter the eyes of these few young friends. But that child's temperament is excellent and he can endure it. Zhang Xuanyu frowned. If you knew that he was talented, why did you place them in such a place? And they were even bossed around by a maidservant? The old man sighed. Our Su family has long declined. Many of the children in the family are useless. My little friends, you have to know that in order to release a person's potential, we have to suppress him, polish him, and even have hatred in our hearts. Only in this way may there be a chance in the future. Luo Xiaobai said, you've long taken a fancy to him? The old man nodded. It's true that we took a fancy to him, and it's also true that we deliberately indulged our servants. Of course, we will ensure that they are alive. And this child is one of the children that our Su family wants to send to the Thug Academy. Lu Renquang mumbled, I really don't understand. It's so hard to be a disciple of a large clan. Li Luoluo snorted. It seems that it's better to stay in the town. The town is free and doesn't have so many schemes. Zhang Xuanyu curled his lips. It's just that you didn't see it. Han Fei nodded. Okay, we'll see. However, Senior Sue, the first time we came here, we were used. This doesn't make sense, right? We have to make it up to him." The old man smiled and said, "Naturally, this is the compensation. From today onwards, the Sue family will completely stand on the side of the Thug Academy. My Sue family can handle anything that is inconvenient for you, my Sue family." Luo Xiaobai asked in surprise, "What trouble do you have?" The old man sighed slightly. "To tell you the truth, the Sue family is declining. We two explorers are only about 800 years old. Unfortunately, we were forced to consume too much of our lifespan, leaving us with less than 10 years of lifespan. If the two of us die, the Sue family will not be far from complete decline." Han Fei took a deep breath. What a bold old man. He's betting all his treasures on the Thug Academy. Han Fei said lightly, "Are you sure you can get the corresponding returns by doing this?" The old man smiled and said, "As long as one of the chosen children rises, the Sue family will be alive. As long as these two people don't die, the Sue family will not be destroyed." Luo Xiaobai suddenly asked, "After learning that the Thug Academy has returned, you should have investigated the Scattered Stars Island, right?" The old man nodded slightly. "I've heard of it. You are all legendary figures. You can be said to be peerless and superior to all the big families." Luo Xiaobai said, "Then are you still going to bet on the Thug Academy?" The old man grinned and smiled brilliantly. "Since the Thug Academy is willing to put you in the 1,000-star city, why wouldn't the Sue family dare to bet?" The old man's words rendered Han Fei and the others speechless. After all, the Thug Academy was once a glorious big family and dared to bet on anything. Moreover, it was a gamble of all or nothing. But did the Thug Academy need it? Of course. With two explorers in charge for 10 years, even if they offended a small family, they could still accept 2 students. Only idiots wouldn't want such a good thing. Han Fei shrugged. "Okay, it's just the Zhao family. Anyway, they can't defeat the Chu sect and the Chao family. It's no big deal. Since we've already met one person, where is the other one?" The old man smiled and said, "Little friends, please go to the banquet. If I'm there, people will be suspicious. I'm afraid I can't accompany you." Han Fei and the others understood the old man's concerns. They were about to die. How could they not have any concerns? Luo Xiaobai said, "Okay. Then let's go to the banquet." Han Fei had a feeling that something was wrong. As soon as he came in, he was schemed against. Although the outcome of being schemed against wasn't too bad, it still didn't feel right. Compared with these old foxes, he was like a piece of blank paper. Luo Xiaobai said, "Don't worry. The Sue family is betting on the Thug Academy. Besides, at this juncture, the sudden appearance of the Thug Academy is their life-saving straw. They have to grab it." At this moment, the butler was already waiting halfway, welcoming Han Fei and the others with a smile. It was as if he didn't know what had happened just now. The Sue family's welcoming banquet was held in the courtyard, brightly lit everywhere. The entire banquet was more than 2,000 meters long, and there were more than 100 tables. At the front of the banquet was a place that looked like an arena. Han Fei's table was closest to the arena. Su Yang personally accompanied them. There were also some people who shouldn't be from the Su family but were quite famous. After Han Fei and the others took their seats, Su Yang introduced, "Little friends, these are all famous families of the Pure Sun Island. This is Lu Qingji, an advanced law enforcer. He's in charge of the Pure Sun Island's trade market. This is..." In fact, Han Fei wasn't interested in these people at all. Luo Xiaobai wasn't interested either, so she could only respond, "If you want to enter the Thug Academy, you have to pass the assessment. Family Master Su, almost everyone should be here. Let all the children of the Su family come out." Su Yang smiled and said, "Little friends, do you want to announce to the public that the Thug Academy is about to recruit students? Then, do you want to take the test?" Han Fei nodded. "Okay." Immediately, Han Fei's figure flashed and appeared on the arena. The moment Han Fei stood on the arena, everyone's eyes were focused on him. The voices of conversation also became softer. Han Fei said, "My name is Han Fei, the acting president of the Thug Academy on the Pure Sun Island in the Thousand Star City. I believe everyone who came today should have more or less heard the news of the return of the Thug Academy. I won't waste any more time. The Thug Academy will start recruiting students tomorrow. However, it's only recruiting 3 people. Why 3 people? Because we'll be recruiting 2 later. Anyone can participate. Those who want to come, gather outside the Thug tomorrow." Wow. Countless people were dumbfounded. What the hell? Your school is only recruiting 3 people? Someone said, only 5 people in total? Someone was speechless. Isn't this too much of a joke? Is this still an academy? Someone stood up and said, "Little friend, even the former Thug Academy wouldn't only recruit 5 people." Han Fei immediately said, "Don't call me little friend. You can call me President Han. The acting president is also the president." The man rolled his eyes. "You're just a peak-level hidden fisher. Do you think you deserve to be the president?" Someone sneered. If a hidden fisher can be the president of an academy, is it still the Thug Academy of the past? Can you still go? Han Fei naturally wouldn't be afraid. In fact, he didn't care about anyone here. The Thug Academy had never relied on recruiting disciples, except for Chu Jinan and Ling Yuan, who were recruited in this way. He, Luo Xiaobai, and the others were not recruited in this way. Han Fei sneered. Come or not, the Thug Academy has always been open-minded in its recruitment. Anyone who can come in will become a talent if they don't die. That's all I have to say. The rest is up to you. Just as Han Fei was about to step down, someone suddenly sneered. What if you, the acting president of the Thug Academy, lose? Suddenly, someone flew down from the sky, and that person was clearly a law enforcer. Everyone looked up and found that this person was actually an intermediate law enforcer, and his aura seemed to be stronger than that of the intermediate law enforcers that Han Fei had encountered. Han Fei immediately looked at Su Yang. "Are you invited?" Su Yang stood up. "Who are you? It's not appropriate for you to come uninvited, right?" "Ha ha ha." The man laughed and said, "Who cares who I am? Since the Thug Academy has started to recruit students, we have to see if they have the ability, right? Don't let a few peak-level hidden fishers mess around here. Isn't that a joke?" Han Fei immediately understood. They were here to cause trouble. Su Yang shouted, "Sir, do you think it's so easy to break into the Su family? If you don't leave, don't blame me for being merciless." The man said disdainfully, "Family Master Su, why? These teenagers have just come to the Thousand Star City, and they've already established a relationship with your Su family? I'm just questioning, not doing anything wrong. What can you do to me, Family Master Su?" Han Fei stepped into the air. "Well, do you want to know if I, the acting president, have the ability? Yes. Let's have a life-and-death battle. Do you dare to fight now?" Wow! There was an uproar below. Someone exclaimed, "He's indeed from the Thug Academy. He's always so arrogant." Someone sighed. Although Han Fei seems to have the record of fighting 1 against 5, junior law enforcers and intermediate law enforcers are 2 different concepts. But beginner and intermediate enforcers are 2 different concepts. Why did I hear that Su Li also went? His explosive power is comparable to that of an intermediate law enforcer. On the other side, the teenagers who had been prepared all looked up at the sky as if they were listening to a heavenly book. On the other side, the youths who were already prepared were all looking up at the sky as if they were listening to a heavenly book. Is this the strength of the Thug Academy? Is this the strength of the Thug Academy? Chapter 995. Above the Su family, Han Fei stood proudly in the void. The appearance of the phantom glass wings caused an uproar. Wind God Pearl, it's definitely the Wind God Pearl. Someone took a deep breath. He's probably a peerless genius. He even obtained the wind god pearl. Someone said enviously, "No wonder he dares to be so overbearing. If you can even obtain the wind god pearl, what's the big deal about challenging someone of a higher level?" Someone sighed. "It's the Thug Academy after all. If they weren't real geniuses, would they dare to rely on a few hidden fishers?" And the man opposite Han Fei looked gloomy. It was true that he was here to make trouble, but he didn't expect Han Fei to be so shameless. It was a life-and-death battle the moment they arrived. Even if he won, he wouldn't be able to kill Han Fei. But if he lost, not only would he lose face, he might even die. However, he was frowning. Although Han Fei had a 1-on-5 record, those were all junior law enforcers. As for himself, he was already at the peak of the intermediate level. His strength reached 8 waves, and with the help of his secret method, his strength was nearly 20 waves. There was no way he would lose to a peak-level hidden fisher. It was said that this kid's strength was not stronger than Su Li's. In other words, even if Han Fei fully exerted his strength, he could only unleash about 15 waves. Could it be that his speed was fast? His law enforcer was speed enhancement. There was no reason for him to be slower than him. Thinking of this person was immediately filled with confidence. Even if Han Fei had other extraordinary means, he could only defeat him at most, but he couldn't kill him. If he won, the Thug Academy would have a bad start and would only struggle in the 1,000-star city. He said, "Good, the acting president of the Thug Academy is indeed a bit bold. Since you want to fight, I'll fight with you." Below, Zhang Xuanyu curled his lips and said, "This person is finished." Lu Renkuang was smacking his lips and eating. He wasn't worried at all. He smiled and said, "At least in the realm of law enforcer, I don't want to fight Han Feifei." Luo Xiaobai slightly nodded. "After you become an explorer, the effects of the secret techniques will be greatly reduced. I can give it a try then." Li Luoluo looked at them in shock. "Hey! Why are you guys so confident? The other party must have come prepared. You still don't understand the law enforcers. Peak mid-level is already very strong." Luo Xiaobai shook her head. "No, you don't understand." Above, Han Fei grinned and said, "Then, let's begin." Buzz. Both of them instantly flew up into the sky. Otherwise, if it was too close to the ground, a casual touch would cause damage. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the people below could no longer see the two figures. The middle-aged man sneered, "You asked for it." But Han Fei didn't speak at all. He just waved his hand casually, and a long saber instantly cut through the void, as if he had just done a simple thing. Poochie! The broken body fell from the sky, and the long saber had already disappeared without a trace. Han Fei grumbled as he flew down, "You talk too much." In the backyard of the Su family, the expressions of the two elders suddenly changed. One of them said, "That strike just now was from a peak law enforcer?" The other person nodded hard. "That's right. He must be a peak law enforcer. He easily tore through the void. This strength has already surpassed Su Yang." Not just Su Yang. If the explorers didn't come out, no one would be able to defeat them. This was really too terrifying. Did the disciples of the Chu sect and the Chao family have this ability? A hidden fisher slaughtered a law enforcer with just one strike? In the backyard of the Su family, the two explorers were deeply shocked. In the distance, an explorer in the void narrowed his eyes and murmured, "Punishing saber. Looks like it's impossible to shake them with this kind of small skirmish." With that, this person disappeared without a trace. At the welcoming banquet, the people who were looking up only felt a terrifying pressure descend. Then, Han Fei came down? Someone was speechless. Why did he come down? Is he not fighting anymore? Someone was surprised. Where's that law enforcer just now? A hidden fisher smiled bitterly. What do you mean by fighting? That law enforcer is already dead. What? Dead? No way. So fast? Isn't he an intermediate law enforcer? He died just like that? Bam! The next moment, everyone saw a broken body fall. The old butler of the Sioux family's expression changed. He quickly put away the body, thinking, "Don't let it affect the welcoming banquet." At the same time, the old butler was sweating all over. It was too terrifying. There was no way to block that saber at all. Even Su Yang had a faint sweat on his forehead. However, unlike others, he could tell that it didn't seem to be Han Fei's own strength. But even so what? It wasn't Han Fei's own strength, but he could use it. He didn't seem to be able to block this saber, let alone a mere intermediate law enforcer. Su Yang couldn't help but sigh for that person. Why did he have to do this? Since he could come to the Thousand-Star City, how could he not have any trump cards? Great, he couldn't even use any laws and died instantly. He probably didn't even expect it. As for the children, they were still at a loss. How did he win just like that? Was he a fake law enforcer? Han Fei landed on the stage and smiled. If there are any more challengers, I don't mind. At that time, the whole place was buzzing and everyone was whispering to each other. Challenge? Is that a challenge? That's more like courting death. Only a fool would challenge him. Is it easy to become a law enforcer? It's over with one slash. Someone thought to himself, although the Thug Academy has been extinct for more than 30 years, it's easy to tell if there's anyone. No, when I go back today, I'll let my kid line up at the entrance of the Thug Academy. At least there are 3 more places. Let's see who can win. Seeing that no one responded to him, Han Fei returned to the dining table dejectedly. The way the people at the table looked at him had changed. Even Li Luoluo was dumbfounded. She had fought side by side with Han Fei. When did Han Fei become so strong? Su Yang said, "Everyone, eat and drink well. The banquet is starting." On the other side, Su Yang gestured with his eyes, and the old butler flashed to the back of the arena and urged, "Young masters, young ladies, hurry up and go to the arena. Whether you can enter the Thug Academy or not depends on you." For a moment, the group of youths were nervous. If they hadn't seen the domineering law enforcer being slashed by Han Fei just now, they wouldn't have been so nervous. However, Han Fei had just killed a law enforcer in front of them. How could they not be afraid? Among this group of youths, many people had firm gazes. The opportunity was here. Let's see if we can be chosen. Su Sanxian clenched his fist. He wasn't horrified when he saw the scene just now. He only felt his blood boil. As a person, they should be like this. They shouldn't submit to others. With absolute strength, they should give themselves absolute confidence. Whoosh! He saw 52 youths enter the arena in a row. This was already a lot. This was because only 12 years old was the best golden age. If they could find a suitable candidate in this batch, then the Su family wouldn't even consider those of other ages. This was because this age was the easiest to mold. Luo Xiaobai looked at Su Yang and said, "Not all of them are here?" Su Yang smiled and said, "I'm ashamed. There are only 52 12-year-olds in the Su family." Zhang Xuanyu said, "There's no age limit. It's fine to take a look at all of them." Su Yang nodded. "If there's no one in this batch, the children between the ages of 9 and 13 will come up together." At this moment, all the children were staring at Han Fei and the others. Su Sanxian was staring at Zhang Xuanyu. "This person just helped me and my mother. Is he also a senior of the Thug Academy?" Su Yang stood up, picked up his wine glass, and downed it in one gulp. "Today, I'm indebted to the Thug Academy for thinking highly of me. President Han, please take the test." Han Fei returned the toast and looked at the arena. "Remember, this is a test. Keep your mind and your heart." With that said, Han Fei looked at Li Luoluo and said, "Do me a favor and set up the insect illusion." Li Luoluo said in surprise, "I'll take the test?" Han Fei smiled and said, "You do it." Even experts of the same realm as Li Luoluo were very afraid of her insect illusion, let alone a group of children. Han Fei had already made up his mind. If all of them failed, there was still another method. Liluoluo waved her hand and a gorgeous, seven-colored light scattered on the heads of the youths. At the banquet, everyone forgot to eat and was looking at the youths on the arena. However, in the blink of an eye, the group of youths fell to the ground. Someone cried, "Insects, so many insects! Father, save me! Mother, mother, save me! Don't come over! Damn insects, don't come over!" There were only 3 people who could last a breath of time. To Han Fei's surprise, the 3 of them should have good temperaments. Su Sanqian felt that his soul was trembling. Those colorful, odd-looking bugs were crawling all over his body. A strange pink centipede was searching for something in his mouth and nose, as if it wanted to crawl into his body. Su Sanqian shut his mouth tightly and tried to shatter the insects with a spiritual energy protective cover. However, the spiritual energy protective cover instantly shattered. It was useless. No. Su Sanqian, you must become a student of the Thug Academy. He recalled Han Fei's words, "Keep your mind and your heart. Yes, live. If not, die." Feeling that there were insects drilling in his ears and nose, Su Sanqian shouted and opened his mouth, biting the centipede and a few unknown insects into his mouth. Below the stage, Liluoluo said in surprise, "This child is prepared to die." At this moment, 3 seconds had passed on the stage. The only one left standing was Su Sanqian. The others were already crying for their parent. This was only an illusion, but it wasn't something a group of children could accept. Su Yang sighed. A bunch of disappointing things. It's not like they haven't experienced pressure and attack illusions before. It's just changing to insects. Why don't they know how to be flexible? Liluoluo looked at Han Fei. "Do you want to continue?" Han Fei shook his head. "No, let's withdraw and see." As the illusion disappeared, some ran off the stage, some continued to cry, and some randomly released spiritual energy explosions. After a while, these youths finally recognized the situation. In the crowd, only Su Sanqian stood still. His body was straight as he looked at Han Fei and the others. Han Fei looked at Su Yang. "The 3 of you stay here first." Han Fei pointed at Su Sanqian and the other 2 youths. Although the 2 youths had just moved and even sat on the ground, they gritted their teeth and persevered. However, they had been gritting their teeth and just didn't stand. Han Fei didn't doubt their temperament. Su Yang was overjoyed. "The 3 of you come here." Su Sanqian and the other 2 were overjoyed. At the same time, the 3 of them firmly believed that there would definitely be a second round. They couldn't lose. Chapter 996. Although a 12-year-old child who had just been enchanted was the most malleable. However, talent was not just about malleability. Therefore, Han Fei and the others firmly believed that they should see all the people behind them. As Su Yang clapped his hands, a total of 123 children came. Zhang Xuanyu said in surprise, "Why is there a shorty at the very edge?" Han Fei and the others also noticed it. In the crowd, there was a rather childish little girl holding a wooden toy fish in her hand. His large eyes rolled around, his face full of bewilderment. Han Fei said with a smile, "Maybe it's just because it looks small. Let me tell you, a girl changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood. It's impossible to tell how tall she will grow in the future." Luo Xiaobai and Liluoluo looked at Han Fei strangely. "You've invented another new word, and you're so good at it. It's as if you're very experienced." Han Fei laughed dryly. "Don't forget, you weren't that tall before." With that, Han Fei gestured. Ignoring the gazes of Luo Xiaobai and the others, he looked at Liluoluo and said, "Do the same test again." Liluoluo frowned and said, "You already know that it's an illusion. As long as you overcome yourself, you'll be fine. Do you want me to increase the difficulty?" Han Fei shook his head. "No, there's still the next test." Liluoluo nodded and waved her hand. The colorful mist spread out again. Sure enough, this time, it wasn't as exaggerated as the previous time. Only a dozen or so people screamed in horror. No matter how terrified most people were, they would at most sit on the ground or take a few steps back. However, this time, the standard was different from before. Su Sanqian and the others persisted until the end. In this batch, if they moved their position, they would be eliminated, even if it was only a small step. Han Fei looked at Su Yang and said, "This is the simplest test." Su Yang nodded with a dry smile, feeling a little emotional. The decline of the Su family wasn't without reason. Once they experienced the real test, they would forget about their daily training. Luo Xiaobai said indifferently, "The people eliminated are basically children under the age of 12. There are only 5 of them left. Only 7 or 8 13-year-olds have been eliminated. We can proceed to the next step." Zhang Xuanyu muttered, "That little girl is one of the 5. That's strange. She seems to be the smallest." Han Fei nodded and asked Li Luoluo to withdraw the illusion. After all the eliminated children were taken away, he looked at Su Sanqian and the other 3 and said, "The 3 of you go on stage." The 3 of them perked up, knowing that the second round of assessment was about to begin. However, apart from Su Sanqian, the other 2 felt that it was unfair. After all, the same testing method would definitely not be as effective as the first time. Now, there were nearly 50 people left on the stage. In this way, his chances of being chosen would decrease once again. However, Su Sanqian didn't think so. He was already used to unfair treatment. He knew that powerhouses wouldn't care about such a small matter. What he needed to do was to be himself, successfully pass the second round of assessment, and stand at the end. When everyone was curious about how Han Fei would carry out the second test, Han Fei said to the people in the arena, "As a cultivator, you can make up for anything you lack, but you can't lack perseverance. From now on, all of you are to stand within 1 meter of where you are. Do not fall to the ground. In the end, I'll choose 2 people." Han Fei gave a reminder, and his words were clear. Most people, including Su Yang, guessed that Han Fei would use the most ordinary means of coercion. However, Han Fei flipped his hand, and a series of bangs burst out on the ring. At this moment, at least 10 people suddenly sat on the ground. Hiss! The law of gravity? Su Yang and the others were all law enforcers at Han Fei's table. How could they not tell? Han Fei directly exerted gravity on everyone and eliminated nearly a dozen people in the blink of an eye. The children who had already sat on the ground looked confused. Someone cried, "I just didn't react in time. I can resist this gravity." Someone begged, "Senior, give me another chance." Without needing Han Fei to speak, Su Yang shook his head slightly and shouted in a low voice, "Don't affect the others' assessment. All of you leave." Zhang Xuanyu suddenly said, "That little girl is still here." Han Fei and the others were speechless. "Why do you keep paying attention to that little girl?" Han Fei was a little disdainful. It seemed that Zhang Xuanyu had the potential to start in 3 years. However, Han Fei was also a little surprised. He looked at the little girl, who was still holding a toy in her hand and often raised her hand to fiddle with the toy in her hand. "Huh. She's a little special." Luo Xiaobai looked at Su Yang and said, "Is she born with divine strength?" Su Yang was a little surprised. This child is a little special. Although her spiritual heritage is a little low, her endurance is extremely strong. But her cultivation speed isn't fast. Even now, she's only a level 8 fisher." Han Fei asked, "How old is she?" Su Yang said in shame, "This child is born petite and young. She's only 9 years old." Han Fei smiled and said, "Okay, let's eat first." This level only tested patience and perseverance. The gravity Han Fei exerted was different, but it was slowly increasing. Almost every second it increased by about 10 kilograms. Within 100 seconds, 3 to 5 people couldn't hold on and fell to the ground one after another. After half an hour, nearly 10 people couldn't hold on and fell to the ground. At this time, every increase in gravity was likely to be the last straw that broke the camel's back. However, Han Fei didn't feel that it was enough. Half an hour later, there were only 8 people left standing on the stage. Zhang Xuanyu added, "That little girl is still there." Han Fei grunted, "Wait a little longer." This time, other than the little girl, even Su Sanqian's knees were bent and he was sweating profusely. Most people spread their legs apart, trying to make themselves more resistant. As for Han Fei, he didn't increase his strength that much. Almost every 10 seconds, he only increased his strength slightly. Below the stage, many members of the Su family were nervous. A man said, "Son, you must hold on. If you can hold on for a while, your future will be limitless." Someone clenched his fists nervously. "Daughter, you must not admit defeat. If you win, you will have everything." Among them, a voice said, "Darling, put down your toy. That thing is heavy." When Han Fei heard this voice transmission, he knew that the person was talking to the little girl. However, the little girl still acted cute and refused to put down her toy. Han Fei and the others looked at each other. "Isn't this little girl a little too tough? She's only a level 8 fisher." Han Fei couldn't help but increase the gravity on her until it increased by another 500 kilograms. The little girl blushed and wanted to raise her head to look up. After another hour, there were only 5 people left on the stage. Han Fei suddenly said, "Okay, that's it. Let's take the test for a day and stand for 12 hours first." Puff. Thud. Hearing Han Fei's words, 2 people fell to the ground. "What? 12 hours? It's only been an hour and it's already like this. What will happen after 12 hours? Su Yang was speechless as he watched from the side. Where did their brains go? Do you believe what he says? He's just bluffing. At this point, there were only 3 people left on the stage. Su Sanqian, the little girl, and an advanced fishing master who gritted his teeth and persisted. A 13-year-old advanced fishing master. Not bad. But just now, there were people at a higher realm than him. However, not many people had persisted until now. To be precise, the young man and Su Sanqian were on par. Han Fei looked at Su Yang. "Who's that young man?" Su Yang smiled faintly. "That's my great-grandson." Han Fei understood. No wonder, he's a direct descendant. With that said, Han Fei removed the gravity on the little girl and waved. "Come here." Below the stage, a man and a woman were overjoyed. Their daughter had actually passed. They had always felt that their daughter's physique was a little special, but her spiritual heritage wasn't high. It was only level 3, high quality. Logically speaking, it was impossible for her to be selected. However, the truth exceeded everyone's expectations. Han Fei said to Su Sanqian and the other young man on the stage, "Of the 2 of you, whoever lasts until the end will be a student of the Thug Academy. As for how long you can last, it's up to you." With that, Han Fei pretended to be profound as he held his wine glass and leaned against the chair. He looked at the little girl who was still holding a toy in her hand and asked, "What's your name?" The little girl looked around and saw her parents winking at her, so she said innocently, "My name is Sophie." "Pooh." Han Fei's eyes widened. He spat out his wine and almost fell? Su Yang and the others looked at Han Fei in astonishment. "What's wrong? Could it be that you've heard of it before?" Su Yang smiled and said, "President Han, have you heard of Nan Nan? I named her because I hope that she can grow up to be a normal woman in the future." Cough, cough, Han Fei hurriedly sat up straight. "Well, this name isn't very good. I think we should change it." "Everyone," Zhang Xuanyu said leisurely, "Fei, can you see a person's luck from their name?" Luo Xiaobai was also puzzled. "I think it sounds pretty nice." Han Fei's expression turned serious. "No, a name carries luck. It's not appropriate. I have to change it." Su Yang smiled and said, "Ha ha ha, this is a small matter. It's fine as long as her surname is still Su." As he spoke, Su Yang sent a voice transmission to Sophie's parents, and the couple hurriedly stepped forward. The woman said, "Change, you have to change it. I've always felt that Feifei's name doesn't match her temperament. President Han is a sensible person. Please give her a name, President Han." The man nodded. "Actually, Feifei is just a nickname. Yes, she's still underage. She can change it at any time." Sophie was dumbfounded. She thought to herself, "Do I have to change my name to study in school?" Han Fei said leisurely, "Ha, cough, cough. Then let me pinch my fingers." Han Fei gestured for a long time, looking like a little quack. Su Yang almost rolled his eyes. In the end, Han Fei said leisurely, "I think Su Daiji should be good." Everyone. Chapter 997. Seeing that everyone was looking at him, Han Fei shook his head with a leisurely expression. "I vaguely comprehended the heavenly Tao and had an epiphany about bestowing a name. I vaguely feel that this name has become a demon. In the future, I might become a king and have great fortune." Hearing Han Fei's bragging, Luo Xiaobai and the others immediately lost interest. Although they didn't know why Han Fei insisted on changing her name. However, Han Fei was always murmuring. After so many years, they were used to it. Let him be. Su Yang smiled stiffly and said, Oh, really? That's good, very good." At this moment, Sophie's mother said, "Darling, remember your new name. Su Daji, from now on, you won't be called Sophie anymore." Her father also nodded. "Fei, Daji, from now on, you have to listen to President Han in school." Han Fei waved his hand. "Sigh. In the academy, you should call me senior brother. I'm just recruiting students on behalf of my teacher. I'm still a student myself." Su Daji obviously didn't care what her name was. She stretched out her hand. Toy. Han Fei glanced at her. "This girl is a little silly. But don't panic. The people of the Thug Academy have always been unique. Just a toy? How can I have a toy?" With a thought, he summoned a piece of trash material and casually refined it. A moment later, a third-order Rubik's Cube appeared and he threw it to Su Daji. Han Fei said, "Okay, since you're a member of the Thug Academy, you can sit at the table." Su Yang glanced at the couple and asked them to return to the table. Su Daji was arranged to sit next to Han Fei. However, this girl clearly wasn't interested in food. As for the Rubik's Cube, it was spinning noisily. The wooden fish toy in her hand had already fallen to the ground. She didn't even have the intention to pick it up. Han Fei smiled and said, "Senior Su, the other person you prepared is actually your great-grandson, right?" Han Fei looked at the rooftop and saw Su Yang nodding awkwardly. "Ming is actually not bad. His talent is already outstanding in this generation of the Su family." Su Yang actually had a lot of doubts about Han Fei's choice of Daji. In his opinion, the two on the stage should be Han Fei's choice. He could not help but remind Fei, Daji's spiritual meridian is actually a little low. It's only a level 3 high-quality one. The Su family had suspected this before. After repeated tests, it's indeed only a level 3 high-quality one. Han Fei grinned. Spiritual heritage is not a problem. If spiritual heritage could directly determine a person's achievements, then the 1,000-star city would have been full of strong people. The Thug Academy doesn't care about that. After an entire 2 hours, all the people who came to the banquet dispersed. Most people didn't want to wait for Su Sanqian or Su Ming, who could last until the end. Furthermore, the reason why the Su family held this banquet was actually to tell everyone that they were on the same side as the Thug Academy. The other was to announce the return of the Thug Academy and the start of enrollment. As for the news that Han Fei killed an intermediate law enforcer with one slash, it would definitely spread throughout the Pure Sun Island tomorrow. Those who should know would know. Those who did not know would not pay too much attention to it. Everyone at Han Fei's table had left early, leaving only Su Yang and the old butler to accompany Han Fei and the others. As for Han Fei, only Lu Renquang was still stuffing himself with food. He wasn't that picky about food. As long as he could eat it, it was fine. Han Fei and the others all looked at Su Daiji. The girl was spinning the Rubik's Cube in her hand at a very fast speed. It was almost to the point of producing illusions. Su Yang was dumbfounded. This is the big box in the Thug Academy, right? He only knew that there was such a thing. But now, it seemed that after the color was completely messed up, it seemed extremely difficult to restore it. The one in Daji's hand was a level 3 cube, while the one in the Thug Academy was a level 4 cube. Su Yang could even imagine that although it was only one level higher, it was still a level 3 cube. However, Su Daiji had tried countless times when she couldn't grasp the essentials of this step. Ever since she obtained the cube, she had never stopped. Up until now, she could only piece one side together. Then how should she spell the one in the Thug Academy? However, Han Fei, Luo Xiaobai, and the others didn't think so. The few of them exchanged glances secretly. Is this girl AF * King hardcore player? Luo Xiaobai was even a little shocked. They had all looked at the blueprints and knew the steps before they could start. But Su Daiji? It seemed like she had only pieced one side together, but she was only 2 steps away from completing the cube. How terrifying was this level of talent? At this moment, Han Fei was even more certain that there was something wrong with Su Daji's spiritual heritage. She had to be extremely intelligent. Otherwise, how could she be so fast? While Su Daiji was focused on playing with the cube, Su Sanxian and Su Ming seemed to be reaching their limits in the arena. Su Yang couldn't bear it and said, President Han, actually, Sanxian and Ming are quite talented. Can you? No. Luo Xiaobai answered this question directly. She said, they are talented, but if we only choose one of the 3, we will choose Daiji. In other words, their talent doesn't mean anything. Compared to some big clans, there are many people who can do what they do. Su Yang sighed inwardly. That's true. In those top families, there were many people stronger than Su Sanxian and Su Ming. It was no wonder that Han Fei and the others were only willing to choose one. Su Sanxian's mother was standing in a distant corner. She didn't attend the banquet, nor did she have the right to. From the moment Su Sanxian went on stage, she had been here, gritting her teeth. She knew Su Sanxian and knew that he wasn't the kind of person who would give up. He would definitely win. On the stage, Su Sanxian felt that he couldn't hold on any longer. However, thinking of so many years of oppression and suffering, he knew that he couldn't afford to lose. If Su Ming lost, he would still be a direct descendant of the Su family. But he had lost? His life was over. He was unwilling to accept it. Suddenly, Han Fei and the others realized that the surrounding spiritual energy was surging slightly. Su Sanxian had actually broken through. Han Fei was slightly surprised. Interesting. Luo Xiaobai said, from the looks of it, he won. Zhang Xuanyu grinned. Yes, he won. Su Ming was competing in endurance. He wasn't much better than Su Sanxian. The moment Su Sanxian broke through, he sighed inwardly and thought, it's over. Su Ming couldn't hold on any longer and fainted on the ground as soon as he let go of his competitive spirit. Su Ming's father let out a long sigh. He picked up Su Ming and walked towards the back of the house. However, he didn't believe it. Would one really become that strong after entering the Thug Academy? He admitted that Han Fei was very strong. This was undeniable. However, it didn't mean that everyone could reach Han Fei's level, right? If that was the case, how could the Thug Academy have been defeated back then? At this moment, in the corner, Su Sanxian's mother burst into tears. At this moment, she finally couldn't hold it in any more and burst into tears. Furthermore, the moment Su Sanxian broke through, Han Fei patted Zhang Xuanyu's shoulder and said to Luo Xiaobai and the others, let's go. Back to school. Luo Xiaobai naturally wanted to hold Su Daiji's hand. As for the girl, she jumped down from the chair and followed behind Han Fei, her hands never leaving the cube. Li Luoluo said curiously, I bet she'll need at least 3 days to complete the last 2 steps. Luo Xiaobai was silent for a while. Tomorrow morning. Han Fei wasn't sure. I won't bet. The next morning, when Han Fei woke up, he sensed that there was already a long line outside the maze. There were hundreds of people. It was only daybreak. Han Fei wasn't in a hurry. He realized that Su Sanqian was fighting Zhang Xuanyu while Su Daiji was playing with the cube. However, Su Daiji was playing with the cube now, so she didn't need to look at it directly. Her hands were subconsciously spinning the cube at an extremely fast speed as she stared at Su Sanqian, who was fighting. In less than 3 seconds, Han Fei saw Su Daiji finish putting the cube together. Then, she continued to scatter it, take a look, and continue spinning blindly. Wow! This girl is good. Is there something wrong with the Su family's brains? Such a talent is actually measured by spiritual heritage. In the arena, Zhang Xuanyu said, "Too slow. Don't use your nonsensical, unorthodox methods, they are full of loopholes." Su Sanqian had already been playing for half an hour. In the end, he didn't even touch the corner of Zhang Xuanyu's clothes. He fell countless times and was covered in dust. A moment later, Han Fei walked over slowly. Zhang Xuanyu said, "All right, that's all for the basic test." Su Sanqian hurriedly said respectfully, "Dean." Han Fei rolled his eyes. "Call me senior brother. Don't call me Dean in the future." "Yes, Dean. Senior brother." Su Daiji extended her hand to Han Fei again. She didn't say anything and looked a little aloof, but her expression was cute. She was short. Han Fei couldn't help but smile and rub her head. Su Daiji shook her head and stared at Han Fei angrily. Han Fei casually took out 2 fourth-order cubes and threw one to Su Daiji and the other to Su Sanqian. After Su Daiji received the 4th-order Rubik's Cube, she carefully placed the 3rd-order imitation into her pocket. His hands were already spinning the Rubik's Cube. Su Sanqian was confused. He looked at Su Daiji, who was having fun, but after spinning it a little, he was dumbfounded. "What should I do?" Before he could think, Han Fei threw another fish skin map to him. "Don't figure it out yourself. Just look at the steps." Han Fei didn't expect everyone to be like Su Daiji. This girl had picked up a treasure. It was beyond Han Fei's expectations. Zhang Xuanyu said calmly, "Should I let them enter the library after I'm done?" Han Fei thought for a moment. Train their physique first. With his past experience, Han Fei knew that Zhang Xuanyu and Lu Renquang were examples. They didn't have to temper their bodies, but this was definitely a foundation. Since he was here to accept students, he had to follow his teaching routine. As he spoke, Han Fei glanced at the two of them. "Follow me." A moment later, the group passed through the maze and arrived at the library. The Rubik's Cube in Su Daiji's hand fell to the ground. The little girl hurriedly picked up the Rubik's Cube and stared blankly at the gigantic Rubik's Cube above her head. Su Sanqian also took a deep breath. He looked at the cube in his hand and then at the cube above his head. His heart trembled. "What is this? What is this place?" Han Fei threw another jade slip to each of them. It was the demon level, divine quality 108 spirit-absorbing war bodies. It was much better than the incomplete version he had back then. Han Fei said, "Su Sanqian, Su Daiji, this is a body tempering technique. I'm not asking you to take the path of body tempering. However, body tempering is the foundation of everything. When you can complete these 108 postures, we can start the class." Then, Han Fei smiled and said, "Let's go. Continue to recruit students." Second night, asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 998. The labyrinth was hundreds of kilometers long, and there were many twists and turns. Even Luo Xiaobai and the others would get lost without using teleportation arrays, perception, and without destroying the labyrinth itself, because there were many ultra-short distance teleportation arrays here. If they accidentally stepped into a teleportation array, they would find themselves in a strange place. Of course, not all teleportation arrays had problems. Some labyrinths were infinite loop. Once someone discovered that this was an infinite loop, the teleportation array would be the only way to the next labyrinth. When Han Fei and the others came to the front of the spiritual plant labyrinth, there was already a line of thousands of people, usually adults with children. Now, some people could still enter the labyrinth with their perception. After all, this labyrinth had not been completed yet. At present, only the framework had been completed, and the arrays inside were almost completed. Because the seal above the labyrinth had not been set up yet, those who were hidden fishers had more or less explored it. At a glance, they found that it was all a giant spiritual plant wall piled up with spiritual plants. Someone was still discussing, "This huge labyrinth must have a time limit to pass. If we don't fly over it, it'll be very difficult." Someone shook his head. "No, have you noticed? The spiritual energy in this labyrinth is particularly abundant. Besides, the sign says that there are killing arrays inside. I'm afraid it's not as simple as a labyrinth." A parent said worriedly, "The children are so young, and they set up a killing array for the assessment? Will they really be fine?" As soon as this question came out, many parents began to think. This assessment might be accompanied by some dangers. "Look, it's out." Immediately, someone shouted, "President Han, can we take the assessment today? President Han, what are the rules of this assessment? How long does it take to pass? President Han, is this labyrinth very dangerous? Is there any danger of death?" President Han, for a moment, all kinds of questions burst out. It could be seen that everyone seemed to have accumulated a lot of questions. This Thug Academy really didn't look like an academy. This made it seem more like a mystic realm. Han Fei raised his hand and stopped everyone's voices. "Don't panic, everyone. Let me briefly explain the rules. This rule is very simple. First of all, this labyrinth is also known as the Infinite Labyrinth. Although there are killing arrays inside, as long as you don't force your way through, you will basically not encounter stronger killing arrays. If one tried to force their way into the maze, they would have to bear the consequences. Secondly, the maze was only open to children from level 9 fishers to fishing masters. If one's strength exceeded the killing array, they would have to suppress their own strength, or else they would trigger the killing array. At that time, there would be danger. This labyrinth has no time limit, but if most people feel that they can't pass it, they should turn back to the shore. Maybe the Thug Academy isn't suitable for you. Hiss. No time limit? But there is a killing formation. Someone shouted, "Dean Han, will we pass as long as we clear this maze?" Han Fei said with a smile, "Of course. As long as you can walk through the maze with your own abilities, you'll pass. However, there are only 3 places left for the Thug Academy's enrollment. Hurry up if you want to enter." Someone asked, "Can we go in now?" "Of course, but everyone, listen up. Don't try to take advantage of the situation. After you catch him, send him to the door and try again." Suddenly, someone shouted, "Son, run! Hurry!" Someone pushed his daughter. "Quick, daughter, you must make good use of your manipulator talent." An old man shouted, "Grandson, it's useless to act rashly. We're not in a hurry. You have to find the flaws in this maze. Once you pass the maze, your future will be limitless." The scene was like a big fish tide. At least 1,000 children were rushing into the maze. Han Fei grinned and said, "Okay, everyone else, please wait patiently." Han Fei looked at Luo Xiaobai. "Are you invigilating the exam?" Luo Xiaobai asked, "What are you doing?" "I'm invigilating the exam and perfecting the mobile maze." Li Luo immediately raised her hand. "I'll help." Han Fei was speechless. "You can also set up arrays?" Li Luo nodded. "I'll plant some cordyceps." Luo Xiaobai impatiently led Zhang Xuanyu and Lu Renquang to invigilate the exam. Li Luo was an external employee, so she could do whatever she wanted. As long as she didn't transform, she could do whatever she wanted. After half an hour, Han Fei was standing on the spiritual plant wall that was about 10 meters high and carving arrays. Of course, it was impossible to carve small arrays one by one on a distance of more than 100 kilometers. Han Fei's plan was simple. He would directly turn this 100 kilometers into a large array. In the future, he could carve small arrays inside indefinitely. For array masters, as long as they had enough patience and time, and as long as they mastered array skills, they would eventually be able to make a terrifying array. This was just like how Rome wasn't built in a day, but once it was frozen for 3 years, it could be seen how deep the ice was. Therefore, don't underestimate an array master. What they made might far exceed their own strength. And Han Fei's current limit couldn't kill a peak-level law enforcer like old Jiang, but as long as he was given time, he could trap a law enforcer powerhouse. When the array was finally perfected, Han Fei felt that there was a chance to trap even an explorer. At this moment, on the plant wall, a little girl was wandering blindly in the maze. This was the 6th time Han Fei had seen this girl. Why did he see her so many times? Because the little girl had been walking on the wooden floor. Han Fei even wanted to remind her, "Why can't you just cross the wooden floor? Why don't you at least try to take a step?" After a while, Han Fei went around to the other side, where 3 teenagers were running wildly. Someone ran at the back. "Not good, those bugs are real." Han Fei asked, "Huh? Bugs, where did the bugs come from?" Han Fei's figure flashed, and appeared hundreds of meters away. In the maze passage here, a row of cordyceps stretched out from the spiritual plant wall, and a centipede was opening its mouth. It was actually alive. Han Fei's face immediately darkened. "I have an array. What is Li Luoluo up to this time? Forget it, it's just an ordinary bug with ordinary strength. Let's keep it." He saw a lot of spiritual energy fluctuations in a passage in the distance, and Han Fei cursed, "Which son of AB** TCH climbed the wall? I haven't set up the array yet. Be careful or you'll die." When Han Fei arrived, he saw a boy lying on the ground, groaning and with a bruised nose and swollen face. Han Fei immediately cast a healing technique on him, stretched out his hand, drew an extremely short teleportation array, and sent him back to the door. On the spiritual plant wall, Luo Xiaobai and the others appeared and disappeared mysteriously, looking around. Of course, there were also many teenagers who were looking at the words and patterns on the spiritual plant wall in surprise. For example, when a girl saw the words "Repent and be saved" on the spiritual plant wall, she curiously stretched out her hand. In the next second, she was sucked in. Outside the maze, an old man said in surprise, "Lin, why are you back?" The little girl was dumbfounded. "Ah, why am I back?" For example, a boy saw the words "The road is under your feet" written on the wall, but as soon as he stretched out his hand, he slipped into an unfamiliar maze. The point was that in the boy's view, they were all spiritual plant walls. There was no difference. But when he looked back, he found that there was a teleportation array on the wall behind him, but the words "Start again" were written on it. He was curious. Is this the way back? So he wanted to take the teleportation array again and go back to take a look. However, as soon as he touched it, he appeared at the entrance of the maze with a swoosh. "Ah, why am I back?" In addition to "The road is under your feet," "Repent and be saved," "Start again," and so on, there were also many strange words. For example, there was "Thank you for your patronage. You have to return to the entrance after touching it." There was "No way," but there was actually an entrance to the next maze. There was "This place is dangerous. Touching it would trigger a killing array." There was "Do not climb," but no one climbed it. It was not until 6 hours later that there were youths who were extremely irritated. "If you don't let me climb, I'll climb." In the end, after climbing, they appeared in another maze. Basically, by the second time they entered, most children seemed to have guessed that they had already found the trick to passing through the maze. As long as they mastered the routine of those teleportation arrays, they would definitely be able to pass through easily. So, after almost everyone came back a few times, finally, in the evening, a youth passed through the first stage of the teleportation maze. However, as soon as he entered the new maze, streaks of saber radiance swept toward him. This youth barely blocked 3 sabers, but in the end, he realized that there was no need to block at all. This saber light was just a mechanism that would only slash in one place. He just had to avoid it. However, when he passed 7 or 8 saber lights consecutively, he suddenly realized that there were saber lights flashing repeatedly in all directions. He had to be able to block 3 saber lights at the same time or he would be hit. However, this small place he was in not only had no saber lights, but there was also a teleportation array behind him. The youth was stunned on the spot. How was he going to pass this thing? Was he going to be slashed by a saber? After thinking for more than 10 breaths, the youth couldn't turn back. It wasn't easy to get here. How could he turn back? But all of a sudden, 3 streaks of saber radiance slashed toward him. Ah! You can't do this! He shattered 2 saber lights in a row, but he couldn't block the third one. His body accidentally left the safe zone and was directly hit by a saber, leaving a terrifying gash on his entire back. Not good. Save me. In the end, the youth chose to turn back. He had to. If he didn't, he would be killed. When night fell, almost half of the good children returned to the entrance. Someone cried, "Mom, I don't want to enter this maze anymore. It's full of traps." A teenager said angrily, "It's impossible to get in. The deeper you go, the more difficult it is. At the beginning, there are only teleportation arrays and then there are killing arrays. It's impossible for anyone to pass." A girl cried, "There is also an illusion array inside. It clearly says congratulations on finding the entrance, but you'll be sent back to the outside of the maze after touching it." A lot of parents looked at each other in bewilderment. Is it really so mysterious? What the hell is this maze? Is it really so difficult? At this moment, Han Fei was still perfecting the maze. Luo Xiaobai suddenly appeared next to him. "Isn't this too difficult?" Han Fei shook his head. "In fact, it's not difficult. The first 100 kilometers are a test of temperament and wisdom. The middle 100 kilometers are a test of special abilities. They are either extremely fast, have excellent adaptability, or have special footwork, or have special contractual spiritual beasts. Anyway, only those with special abilities can pass. Basically, 90% of the people in the middle 100 kilometers will be eliminated. Those who can stay are all elite." Luo Xiaobai said helplessly, "What about the last 100 kilometers? The spiritual plants I set up are already very difficult." "What did you set up?" Third. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 999. The last 100 kilometers? Han Fei grinned and said, "After we have the ability to respond to danger and special abilities, what else do we need to face?" Luo Xiaobai frowned and said, "These are just external factors. Sometimes these are not necessarily useful." Han Fei nodded. "So, the last 100 kilometers is the real selection. You are a manipulator, so your path is left for manipulators. And we naturally left our own things. I left a spirit gathering diagram. As long as you copy it, you will succeed." Luo Xiaobai nodded. "What if you take the wrong path for different professions? I'm afraid it won't be easy for spirit gatherers to pass the maze of soul warriors." Han Fei grinned and said, "How can everything be done according to plan? When we explore secret realms, we will also encounter unexpected situations." Luo Xiaobai nodded. That was true. This was just an entrance examination. If they really explored secret realms, everything was unknown and they might encounter all kinds of dangers. Han Fei grinned and said, "Don't worry. Anyway, we will only accept 5 people. There will always be outstanding people among 100 people. Besides, there are thousands of people here. There will always be one or two who can stand out and walk out of the maze. Luo Xiaobai's mouth twitched. I'm not sure about that. However, I think you'd better make long-term plans. For the first 200 kilometers, lower the difficulty a little. Otherwise, it will be inconvenient for us to always save people. Responding to Luo Xiaobai's words, Han Fei continued to perfect the maze. In fact, helping the Thug Academy recruit students was just something Han Fei did out of boredom. Otherwise, in a place like the Thousand Star City, he wouldn't only recruit 5 people. When the time came, the 5 people would be a perfect combination. First, they would temper their bodies. Then, they would go to the library to look for cultivation techniques and battle skills. They would wait for a few months. Of course, if they could be a perfect combination, that would be the best. At least before Tang Ji's wedding, he wouldn't go to the Monument of Gods, the Sky Meditation Garden, and the Ideal Palace. If he caused any trouble again, it would affect Tang Gu and Mu Ling's wedding. That would be a big problem. Han Fei lay on the spiritual plant wall. What should I give? Old Han gave Tang Gu an ultra-quality divine halberd and the sun and moon concentric rings. Then should I give him a pair of rings? No, he already has the sun-moon concentric rings. There's no point in giving matching rings, so it's better to give something more reliable. Han Fei thought of something. I can send fireworks. Yes, it's a wedding. It has to be a celebration. I'll ask the Su family to get some materials. This should be a matter of minutes. Suddenly, Han Fei sensed that someone had entered the last 100-kilometer maze. Immediately, Han Fei turned over and flew away. In the end, the man landed on the labyrinth where the armorists were. It was a youth dressed in rags, and there were bloodstains all over his body. The young man even cast a healing spell on himself. A spirit gatherer? Han Fei was surprised. This young man was only a junior fishing master, but he had already mastered healing skills. It seemed that he was quite talented. Besides, being able to come here as a spirit gatherer, to a certain extent, it also showed that he should be involved in more than one profession. Lu Renquang seemed to have noticed the boy too. He came to Han Fei with a strawberry in his mouth and said, "Are you a spirit gatherer? I agreed to your request. It's not easy to pass this test. Although I didn't leave any means of attack, I left a shield. The divine turtle has a shield." Han Fei asked in surprise, "How do you break it?" Lu Renquang smiled innocently. "Attack the same point 100 times in 1 second. The strength of each attack is equal and continuous. You can break it." Han Fei looked at the boy in the maze, turned his head to look at the teleportation array, and then stepped over. Although the tests left by the 5 of them were different, they were definitely not easy. For example, although Lu Renquang didn't need to face sharp knives and swords, he needed to control his strength and speed to the extreme. This was more difficult than the admission assessment in the Blue Sea town. Similarly, the difficulty of his spirit-gathering painting was also quite high. If he didn't copy it well, he would cause a spiritual energy explosion. As for the assessments of Zhang Xuanyu, Luo Xiaobai, and Li Luoluo, they should all be actual combat assessments, which could be regarded as dangerous. Soon, the boy went around to the invisible shield shadow left by Lu Renquang. At this moment, he was touching the shield-shaped tangible wall with his hand and was silent for a long time. An armorist shield? In the last 3 steps, he took out a long sword from his sea-swallowing seashell, prepared for a while, and after recovering his energy to the extreme, 3 sword shadows burst out at the same time. Clank, clank, clank. Looking again, the shield wall didn't change at all, and the boy scratched his head gloomily. "I went the wrong way." With that, he turned around without hesitation, quickly ran back to the teleportation array, stretched out his hand, and disappeared into the array. Lu Renquang was dumbfounded. "You gave up just like that?" Han Fei smiled. "Interesting. What else can I do?" He is a spirit gatherer and a soul warrior, which is the path that most spirit gatherers will take, and so will I. However, at this time, his understanding as a soul warrior is not enough, so he obviously can't break your shield. Don't you want to stay here for the night? Lu Renquang curled his lips. I thought someone was going to pass the assessment. Forget it, I'm going back to sleep. Outside the maze, there were still many parents waiting. However, the rescue efforts had been greatly reduced now, because these children had discovered the trick. Wherever it was difficult to pass, there was usually a teleportation array to go back. Therefore, they learned to be smart and didn't break in by force, or once they failed, they would immediately go back to the teleportation array. Anyway, there were so many parents outside, and any spirit gatherer could solve the problem with a healing technique. Until the afternoon 3 days later, Han Fei had completed about half of the maze. Although there was still a lot of room for optimization, he didn't bother to do it. After a few days, when the maze was completely perfected, he would go back to sleep. Bam! At this time, an explosion broke out within the last 100 kilometers. Han Fei scanned with his perception and found that it was the boy from 3 days ago. He didn't know how many times he had searched, but he finally found the way to be a spirit gatherer. Just now, when he was copying his own spirit gathering array, there was an explosion. It was reasonable to say that a spirit gathering array was not difficult. However, what Han Fei drew was a spirit gathering diagram, not a simple spirit gathering array. Therefore, the lines were very irregular, and once he made a mistake, he would explode. Han Fei found that the corner of the boy's mouth was bleeding from the explosion and couldn't help but smile faintly. A spirit gathering array is actually powerful. President Han, I've brought you what you want. Han Fei received a voice transmission from the old butler of the Su family. Han Fei flew over, looked at the nearly 5,000 parents outside the maze, and couldn't help but click his tongue. No wonder it was the 1,000-star city. There were much more people than when the Blue Sea town recruited students. However, Han Fei ignored them and said with a smile, Old Can, do you have a map of the 1,000-star city? And information about the division of the forces in the 1,000-star city? If you have, bring me one too. Su Can nodded repeatedly. Yes, I'll go back and get it. President Han, just wait here for a while. Han Fei took the sea-swallowing seashell from Su Can's hand and scanned it with his perception. It was indeed saltpeter and so on. He was relieved. Because the Su family was not far from here, and Han Fei had nothing to do now, he was happy to wait here. From time to time, a boy suddenly appeared at the entrance of the maze. Obviously, he had failed again. Many parents looked at Han Fei and couldn't help but be in a commotion. However, they didn't know Han Fei well and were too embarrassed to talk to him. Han Fei moved a chair out and began to eat spiritual fruit. Only then did people gather around. Someone said, President Han, have any children passed the assessment so far? Han Fei shook his head. No. A parent said, President Han, isn't this maze a bit too big? We looked at it from the sky and it seems to stretch for hundreds of kilometers. Han Fei smiled and said, It's not big. What's wrong with hundreds of kilometers? Have you forgotten the secret realms in the sea? Not to mention 100 kilometers, there are even thousands of kilometers. A parent said, President Han, apart from this maze, do we have any other assessment methods? Han Fei grinned and shook his head. Everyone, the Thug Academy has a tradition of only recruiting geniuses. I might as well tell you that in fact, some people are about to pass the assessment. If anyone thinks this maze is too difficult, you can actually choose to give up. You have to know that in the past 30 years, the number of students who have joined the Thug Academy can be counted on 2 hands. Do you still think my request is simple? Well, many parents were dumbfounded. What kind of school is this? Although they had heard of it for a long time, they knew that it was difficult for the Thug Academy to recruit students. They didn't expect it to be so difficult. One after another, thousands of people came after hearing the news. The number of children who had entered the maze had reached about 5,000. Up to now, not a single one had passed the assessment, which was too exaggerated. Suddenly, Han Fei's heart did a flip, and he pinched his fingers. It seemed that trouble was coming. Immediately, Han Fei stood up and looked behind everyone. Dozens of seconds later, Han Fei swayed. Ouch, damn it, Han Fei was about to run, but on second thought, he realized that what would come would come. After all, he was right here, and he could find out with a little inquiry. Originally, after more than a year, Han Fei had almost forgotten about Joeen Ling. But now, with a swoosh, Joeen Ling popped out. Obviously, she had already experienced the world of mortals, because she was wearing very ordinary clothes, and her hair hung casually on one side of her chest. She seemed to be a bit more worldly. If it weren't for her delicate face, Han Fei almost wouldn't have recognized her. Chapter 1000. When Joeen Ling landed outside the maze, many people were surprised. Where did this law enforcer come from? I don't think I've seen her before. Besides, isn't this law enforcer a little too young and beautiful? Even though Joeen Ling's clothes were very ordinary, her temperament couldn't be changed after a long time. Even though she smelled like smoke, her posture, expression, and the temperament she exuded were very refined. After Joeen Ling saw Han Fei, she clasped her hands in front of her chest and tilted her head slightly, revealing her white teeth and a bright smile. I'm back! Oh, time flies so fast. You've felt the suffering of the human world so quickly? Joeen Ling seemed to be more cheerful and lively. She grinned and said, It's not over yet. This stage was much more difficult than I had imagined. However, it's indeed very beneficial. I'm already an intermediate law enforcer. If I accumulate more experience, I may be able to become an advanced law enforcer. Han Fei's eyelids twitched and his heart sank. So fast? Joeen Ling approached Han Fei in 2 steps. You're faster. When I left, you had just become a hidden fisher. I haven't seen you for more than a year, and you've already reached the peak, while I've only advanced from a beginner to an intermediate level. Wow! The speaker didn't mean anything, but the listener was suspicious. Instantly, countless people gasped. What did that mean? It only took Han Fei more than a year to go from a beginner hidden fisher to a peak-level hidden fisher? Moreover, the girl who spoke actually took more than a year to go from a beginner law enforcer to an intermediate law enforcer? In the end, was it because this world had changed, or was it because he was incompatible with this world? Many people were stunned on the spot, thinking birds of a feather flocked together. The people that heavenly talents befriended were often heavenly talents too. Cough, cough. Han Fei said to the onlookers, Actually, you don't have to stay here all the time. Don't you go home for dinner? Many people were speechless. Dinner? He's already so powerful. Does it make a difference whether he eats or not? Seeing that no one was willing to leave, Han Fei stomped and a soundproof array appeared. Han Fei frowned and said helplessly, Why are you here? Joeen Ling smiled mischievously. I've visited all the places in the Heavenly Water Village. I learned to cook, buy clothes, go to restaurants, and fish in the ordinary fishery. Just a few days ago I missed you, so I knew it was time to leave. Later, I went to the Scattered Stars Island, but I heard that you had already come to the Thousand Star City. Then, I came back and asked my family to look for you. Only then did I know you were here. Han Fei blushed. This girl is really straightforward. Can we be more tactful? Han Fei forced a smile and said awkwardly, All right. As you can see, I'm currently recruiting students. Why don't you go in and wait for a while? Joeen Ling smiled and said, Does the Thug Academy still need to recruit teachers? Let me. Cough, cough. Han Fei widened his eyes and looked at Joeen Ling in shock. Ah, you want to come to our school to be a teacher? Why? In Han Fei's opinion, Joeen Ling was still a silly girl more than a year ago. She might be good at fighting, but when it came to teaching students, she was still a student, wasn't she? Moreover, Han Fei had discovered that there was a big problem with Joeen Ling's comfort and nature technique, and he had to help her solve her problems. Han Fei paused for a moment. How about this? Go to the school first and wait. When I'm done here, I'll come to find you. Jiuyin Ling nodded with a smile and looked at the huge maze. Do I fly over directly? Han Fei said, You're a law enforcer. Just fly over directly. Remember to stay more than 100 meters above the ground, or you will trigger the restrictions and killing arrays. Jiuyin Ling got up and flew over, leaving the people outside dumbfounded. Someone said in surprise, She went in just like that? Is she also from the Thug Academy? Someone sneered and said, It's obvious that President Han has an unspeakable secret with that girl just now. They're both upright young men, and it's a good time to find a partner. Don't you understand? Many people nodded and agreed with this idea. Han Fei's heart sank. It wasn't a good thing that Jiuyin Ling was here. It wasn't because Jiuyin Ling liked him, but because there was something more serious than that. Suddenly, a woman approached Han Fei. President Han, can I ask you something? Do you have a girlfriend? Swoosh. Han Fei shivered all over and jumped to the side, looking at the woman warily. I do. The woman was slightly disappointed, but then she said, President Han, what about the others? Does the handsome teacher Zhang have a girlfriend? An uncle asked, President Han, what about teacher Luo? Han Fei rolled his eyes and said, She's from the Luo family of the Thousand-Star City. You can try proposing marriage. Immediately, many people's expressions changed drastically. Someone from the Luo family? Someone asked in confusion, Which family is the Luo family? Someone immediately said, as if he was looking at an idiot, Which other Luo family can be named? Wow. Are you talking about that divine manipulator family? What else do you think? Instantly, many people shut up. That wasn't something they could afford. Then, Han Fei saw a fatty say, Your standards are too high. President Han, does teacher Lo have a girlfriend? My daughter is a top-notch beauty. She's also quite talented. Furthermore, she's about the same age as teacher Lo. Immediately, many people looked at this person. His taste was quite strong, but as long as he could marry her, it didn't seem impossible. In any case, he was a true heaven's favorite with outstanding talent. Han Fei looked at everyone speechlessly. Hey. Shouldn't you care if your son or daughter can pass the test? If they can't, bring them home early. After chatting with these people for a long time, the old butler returned. Before the old steward said anything, Han Fei had taken the map from the old steward with a swish and entered the maze with a swish. Below the Rubik's Cube, Su Sanqian was sweating profusely. He was lying on the ground in a strange posture. He felt his entire body convulsing, and this convulsion had lasted for several days. Every time he cultivated, it was like a torture. If it were in the past, Su Sanqian would definitely be overjoyed when he encountered the 108 spirit-absorbing war bodies. He would cultivate it even if he had to risk his life, no matter the price. But now, Su Daiji was cultivating with him. This little girl was currently in a super weird posture. That posture was not one of the 108 postures at all. At that moment, Su Daiji's legs were twisted, and her body was twisted like a fried dough twist. Her head was on the ground, and her two small hands were around her body, spinning the cube. From the first day of cultivation, Su Sanqian had suffered a critical hit. Su Daiji's cultivation speed was too fast. On the first day, this little girl had actually completed 36 postures. There was a high chance that she wanted to play with the cube, so she maintained a posture and began to play with it. It was already the third day, and Su Daiji had already completed 81 postures. At this moment, there was a high chance that she still wanted to play with the cube. Hence, her head was on the ground, and her two small hands secretly played with the cube. As for Su Sanqian, who had been persisting, he had only completed 54 postures. He had once suspected that there was something wrong with his talent. He knew Su Daiji. Her status in the family wasn't too high. However, because his father had become a law enforcer, even though her status wasn't high, she was still a little princess. He had always thought that he was extremely talented. Even if he took an unorthodox path, as long as he endured for long enough, he would still be able to rise. But now, his mentality was about to collapse because of Su Daiji. At some point in time, Luo Xiaobai had arrived under the cube. She glanced at Su Daiji and said, "Daiji, why are you playing with the cube again?" Su Daiji hurriedly put the cube into her pocket and continued practicing. She replied, "I'm almost done." Luo Xiaobai's eyelids twitched. Indeed, she couldn't say anything. Su Daiji's talent was far better than they had imagined. Her cultivation progress was also extremely fast. She didn't look like someone with a level 3 spiritual heritage at all. Suddenly, a figure descended from the sky. When Luo Xiaobai took a closer look, she immediately frowned. Jiuyin Ling. The moment Jiuyin Ling arrived, Zhang Xuanyu, Lu Renquang, and Li Luoluo arrived. Ah Xiao Jiu, Li Luoluo let out a cry and pounced forward. However, Jiuyin Ling tapped her feet and flashed over. "Luoluo, why are you here?" Jiuyin Ling was a little surprised. Did Li Luoluo enter the Thug Academy? Zhang Xuanyu welcomed her warmly. "Hey! It turns out to be Miss Jiuyin. Where's Han Fei?" While Zhang Xuanyu was looking around, the teleportation array flashed, and Han Fei had already appeared under the magic cube library. Immediately, Han Fei looked at Luo Xiaobai and the others and explained, "Actually, there's something wrong with Jiuyin Ling's cultivation technique. I have to find a way to help her solve it." Luo Xiaobai asked, "How are you going to solve it?" Han Fei replied, "Jiuyin Ling's comfort and nature technique is closely related to the sea-quelling painting. Do you understand? There's something wrong with this path, so do you understand?" Han Fei blinked. He didn't know if Jiuyin Ling could hear him. So, he blinked at Luo Xiaobai. But on second thought, Han Fei felt that something was wrong. Why should I feel guilty? I, Han Fei, am an upright person. What am I afraid of? Luo Xiaobai thought to herself, I don't understand, but regardless of whether I understand or not, I have to watch. Jiuyin Ling smiled and said, "Well, I want to be a teacher at the Thug Academy." Immediately, Luo Xiaobai and the others looked at Han Fei. Su Sanqian and Su Daiji also forgot to cultivate not far away. They felt that the atmosphere was a little strange. Chapter 1001. Luo Xiaobai had always been an upright girl. However, after the initial hostility, he quickly regained his senses. In terms of benefits, the Thug Academy was indeed lacking teachers. Furthermore, Jiuyin Ling represented the Jiuyin family. Although they were already in decline, they had still come over to help in the primordial battlefield. Secondly, there was nothing wrong with Jiuyin Ling herself, and the possibility of her rising was very high. She was more than enough to be a teacher. As for the relationship between Jiuyin Ling and Han Fei, Luo Xiaobai naturally knew that Han Fei didn't have that intention. Therefore, what she was conflicted about was, if Jiuyin Ling stayed and followed Han Fei every day, would she fall in love with him? Luo Xiaobai pondered. It was fine for Jiuyin Ling to stay, but she had to communicate with Han Fei. Hence, Luo Xiaobai looked at Han Fei. "Look for yourself." Lu Renquang took a deep breath and secretly said to Zhang Xuanyu, "Something doesn't seem right." Zhang Xuanyu rolled his eyes. "Is there a need to say that? Although this girl is really beautiful, I still refuse from a moral point of view." Xia Xiaochan wasn't around, and their team had always only had 4 people. It was impossible for outsiders to fill in. Even Li Luoluo, the reason why everyone was at ease was because Li Luoluo's personality switch was too strange. Even Zhang Xuanyu couldn't withstand this change. It was even more impossible for Han Fei to withstand it. Although Jiuyin Ling couldn't join this team, everyone was on Xia Xiaochan's side. Although Xia Xiaochan wasn't around for the time being, Luo Xiaobai and the other 2 still played the most direct role of supervision. They couldn't bear to see Han Fei fall in love with others. Han Fei said indifferently, Su Sanqian, Su Daiji, cultivate well. Have you progressed halfway? Hearing this, the two of them immediately focused on cultivation. It was better not to say anything at this time. Han Fei regained his composure and said calmly, All right, I have no problem with Juin Ling coming to the Thug Academy to be a teacher. But Han Fei looked at Juin Ling and said seriously, There's indeed something wrong with your comfort and nature technique. Come with me. The reason why Han Fei quickly regained his composure was that he felt that this shouldn't be a problem. He had the sea-quelling painting in his hands, and after a year of cultivation, he had a lot of resources. Han Fei felt that he didn't have to worry about a mere deduction of 100 million. After all, helping Juin Ling was equivalent to helping himself. Besides, he had to help her, which was why he agreed to let her stay. Because this involved a very serious problem. Back mountain. Han Fei looked at Juin Ling and said, You seem to have changed a lot. Juin Ling smiled. Yes. I met a lot of people in the Heavenly Water Village and made some good friends. Han Fei raised his eyes. Huh? Is there anyone in the Heavenly Water Village who's worth making friends with? Juin Ling smiled and said, You know He Xiaoyu. It was a pity that he had only known her for a short time. Then, she went to the Scattered Stars Island. Right, I know a lot of embarrassing things about you when you were a kid. Han Fei immediately covered his head. Sigh. Is there anything that He Xiaoyu can't say? Han Fei nodded and said, You're a lot more cheerful, and you've even learned to be naughty. But, come with me to a place first. With a thought, the phantom of a land appeared, and Han Fei said, Give me your hand. Grabbing Juin Ling's hand, Han Fei directly stood in the phantom. In the next second, the two of them disappeared into the forest. In the blink of an eye. In the sea-quelling painting. Master. In the void, a pangolin emerged. This was its talent ability, void drilling. The reason why the pangolin arrived as soon as Han Fei appeared was naturally because Juin Ling was there. As a creature in the painting, it would be a failure if it couldn't protect Han Fei in the painting. When she saw the pangolin, Juin Ling was slightly surprised. So strong. The moment Juin Ling entered this space, she became vigilant. She saw that there was a creature that could drill through the void. This was not something that an ordinary law enforcer could do. Even an explorer might not have this ability. Han Fei said with a smile, Great, Senior Earth 9, come with me into the Mist of Nine Sounds. Mist of Nine Sounds? Juin Ling was stunned. It's related to me? Han Fei said with a smile. To be precise, it's related to your family's comfort and nature technique. Earth 9 said gently, Comfort and nature technique? I remember. Once upon a time, someone seemed to have been listening here and created a cultivation technique. However, that person didn't walk through the Mist of Nine Sound. Looking at the confused Juin Ling, Han Fei chuckled. Do you remember I told you before that there was a problem with your comfort technique? Juin Ling nodded. At that time, Han Fei did say that. However, it was true that there was no problem with this technique. So, she didn't know what problem Han Fei was talking about at all. What was the problem? Han Fei pointed to the faint mist in front of him and said, Let's go. Hold my hand and don't let go. This wasn't Han Fei taking advantage of her. If Juin Ling died after listening to the Nine Sounds, with his current control of the sea-quelling painting, he didn't even know how to get her back. Woo! In the sky there were sounds. Suddenly, Juin Ling stopped, her face extremely pale. Then, Juin Ling actually cried. No one knew what she saw. With a thought from Han Fei, the sounds of the Nine Sounds gradually weakened, and Juin Ling finally recovered, but her body was a little soft and she couldn't stand steadily. Juin Ling revealed a rare look of shock. What sound is this? Earth 9 said leisurely, This is the real Nine Sounds. Han Fei said, Actually, the comfort and nature technique doesn't have a clear record at all. He treated the 9 sounds as a kind of comprehension and wrote it into a cultivation technique. But the reality is that the 9 sounds is incomplete. Among them, the 7 sounds contain the sounds of 7 emotions: joy, anger, sorrow, joy, panic, and yearning. And this is why you want to enter the world. Joanne Ling opened her mouth slightly and looked at Han Fei. What are the remaining 2 sounds? Han Fei said lightly, the remaining 2 sounds, one is the sound of supreme forgetfulness, and the other is the sound of universal love. Joanne Ling's eyes were blank as she murmured, supreme forgetfulness? Universal love? Han Fei took a deep breath and said, after I saw the 9 sounds, I knew why your comfort technique didn't mention it. This was because ordinary people couldn't achieve the state of supreme oblivion, so the ancestors of the 9 Sounds clan had fused the original intent of the 9 sounds into their cultivation technique. The goal was to allow the descendants who obtained the legacy to enter the world and come out to experience the vicissitudes of life. Love, friendship, and so on. In the end, he would come into being and destroy these emotions, achieving the level of forgetfulness. Once you do that, the growth of your strength will be terrifying. Joanne Ling trembled all over, and there was finally a hint of fear in her eyes. She looked at Han Fei. Will he forget everything? Han Fei shook his head. Not to forget everything, but to see through everything. For example, if you and I fall in love, if you have a true friend. If that's the case, the only way for you to come out into the world is to kill them. You have to renounce love and friendship, and only then can you come out into the world. Joanne Ling's face turned pale. She quickly retracted her hand and gritted her teeth. I don't want to. I don't want to cultivate any more. Earth 9 suddenly said, according to Master, this level should be the barrier of the explorer. Once you achieve the level of supreme oblivion, you can become an explorer. Also, your strength will indeed improve rapidly. Even the barrier of the venerable realm may not be able to resist this improvement. Han Fei was stunned for a moment and looked at Earth 9 in shock. The level of supreme oblivion can even break through the venerable realm? Earth 9 pondered for a moment and said, that's possible. Suddenly, a branch extended from the void, and the voice of the tree spirit sounded, there's a great horror in here. If you want to renounce your emotions and nature, you'll have to become a demon first. Therefore, after the level of supreme oblivion, the sound of universal love is needed to make the cultivator have an epiphany. Han Fei murmured, one can become a demon and a Buddha with a thought. This comfort and nature technique is even more terrifying than I thought. Joanne Ling was dumbfounded. In other words, if she fell in love with Han Fei, the final result might be that she would have to kill Han Fei with her own hands. The true meaning of the comfort technique was to love someone with all your heart. When the time came, the more you loved, the more sad you would be. But once this threshold was crossed, how could you renounce your emotions and nature? Even the love of your life would be killed. What could be more heartless than this? Joanne Ling staggered. I can't stay in the Thug Academy. Han Fei, send me away. I'll never see you again. Alas! In the void, the branch turned into a human form, and the tree spirit appeared. The tree spirit sighed. According to Master, the moment you cultivated the comfort technique, there was no turning back. Your heart already belongs to someone. You can either fall in love with Master, but you can't improve yourself. But I think at that time, you won't be able to control the improvement of your strength, so you'll definitely be enemies. Or, as you said, you'll leave Master and never see him again. But your strength in this life will never surpass that of a law enforcer. Also, this will become your mental demon, and there's a certain chance that you'll suffer a backlash. The more the tree spirit said, the paler Joanne Ling's face became. She had come to the Thug Academy in joy. But how did she know? What awaited him was actually such a secret.